Chapter 51 Life or Death Crisis, a last-minute rescue. Don't be a picky eater. You need to eat all your vegetables, Yamanaka Reno said, feigning anger as she looked at the few pieces of greens her daughter had deliberately left in her bowl. Ino forced an innocent expression, immediately picked up her chopsticks, and obediently put the vegetables into her mouth. I'm eating them, Mama. Yamanaka Reno nodded in satisfaction, just about to pick up her own bowl to continue eating when her body suddenly stiffened. Then, she abruptly looked towards the staircase leading from the first to the second floor, her expression extremely wary. Ino, get behind Mama. Yamanaka Reno spoke nervously. Ino didn't understand why her mother was so tense, and she too looked towards the staircase. Then, the distinctive tiger-striped mask came into view. Ino's eyes widened, and her father, Inoichi Yamanaka's words immediately resurfaced in her mind. Ino, that mysterious Uchiha masked man, is randomly selecting clan heads within the village for assassination. Papa lives here, which might implicate you and your mama, so Papa won't be able to stay here for a while. Remember, if you ever see a ninja wearing a tiger-striped mask, you must run for your life, understand? Her father's words echoed in her mind, and Ino immediately realized that the masked man standing at the staircase was the Uchiha who had recently been assassinating various clan heads in Konoha. Ino, Mama will hold him off for a bit. You must run away as quickly as possible. Go to a crowded place. Yamanaka Reno had clearly recognized the recently notorious masked man, and she instructed with a heavy voice. Her eyes were downcast, her gaze resolute. She understood that with the masked man's Kaga-level strength, only if she fought to the death would Ino have a sliver of a chance to escape. Seemingly realizing what her mother was about to do, Ino unconsciously shook her head, tears flowing out uncontrollably. No, Mama, no. Ino, no more being willful. Run. Yamanaka Reno shouted this, then channeled all her chakra and attacked the masked man with full force. Mama! Ino cried out in alarm. Beneath the mask, Uchiha Obito coldly watched the impending separation of mother and daughter, and he said coldly, I won't leave any of you alone. Don't worry, none of you will escape. He pulled out a kunai, and facing Yamanaka Reno rushing towards him, his powerful dynamic vision instantly observed her attack movements. Kimui's zero-frame activation. Yamanaka Reno's full-force punch went directly through her entire body, passing through Obito's body, rolling directly down the staircase, and slamming onto the landing platform. Ino escaped through the window. Yamanaka Reno stood up again and launched another attack. The result was unchanged. She attacked from behind Obito, but he phased through it, missing her attack, causing her to lose her balance and fall to the ground. A cold glint flashed in Obito's eyes. He gripped the kunai in a reverse grip, aimed at Yamanaka Reno's back, and stabbed the kunai in. Yamanaka Reno's body instantly stiffened, and blood slowly flowed from beneath her, staining the floor. Ino watched this scene, her mind crashing, feeling as if the sky was about to collapse. Escape? Her mind was almost blank now, filled only with an unspeakable, immense sorrow. Mama! Ino couldn't care about anything else. She quickly ran forward, reaching Yamanaka Reno's side, tears already flowing like an open floodgate, unstoppable. Beneath the mask, Uchiha Obito's expression remained icy. He raised his kunai again, aiming it at Ino Yamanaka's body, about to strike. Since all the clan heads were being protected by Uchiha Shursui, he didn't mind abandoning his dignity and attacking the wives and children of these clan heads. After all, if the conflict wasn't intensified, and if it dragged on for too long, by the time the Uchiha truly integrated into Konoha, it would be difficult for him to implement his plan. Attacking the wives and children of these clan heads might not have such a big impact, but he didn't mind the small impact. Worst case, he would just kill more. For the Eye of the Moon plan, all of this was worth it. The thoughts in his mind flashed in an instant. In reality, Obito's kunai cleanly and sharply plunged down, directly towards Ino's neck, aiming for a fatal blow. Whoosh! The icy chill finally stopped less than an inch from Ino's neck. It wasn't that Obito hesitated, but rather that a hand was firmly clamping his wrist, preventing it from dropping even a fraction of an inch. Obito's gaze turned to his side. There, almost in an instant, an extra figure had appeared. Mariki Lin Sheng. Obito murmured the name of the person who appeared, his eyes filled with shock. Just now, when Rinso appeared, the spatial fluctuations he perceived, if his perception wasn't mistaken, then he actually mastered the Flying Thunder God technique. How long has it been since Orochimaru's attack? And he's already made such progress. He's simply a monster. No, I can't let him live, otherwise he will definitely be a huge variable in the future. Thinking this, Obito instantly phased, breaking free from Rinso's restraint, quickly retreating a few steps and forming hand signs. Fire release. Great fireball technique. The scorching wave of fire reached Rinso almost instantly. He did not dodge or evade, not even sparing it a glance. Wood release. Wood golem wall. A shadow clone of Rinso appeared, using wood release, confronting Obito. Rinso. Rinso. Mama. Mama she. Ino looked up, too choked up to think about how Rinso was here, and spoke with a sob. At this moment, Ino's tears and snot were running wild, making her look very disheveled. But Rinso had no intention of mocking her. He gently wiped away Ino's tears and spoke softly. Just leave it to me. Don't be afraid, Ino. As he spoke, he placed his hand on Yamanaka Rino's wound. The mystical palm technique, which he had acquired long ago, finally came into use. Chakra flowed from his palm, transforming into a grass-green glow, emitting a reassuring aura. Chakra surged into Yamanaka Rino's body, enhancing her self-healing ability. Soon, the flesh of the wound began to grow, and the blood stopped flowing. Yamanaka Rino, who was lying on the ground, also gained some strength, and she spoke with pale lips. Thank you. It's nothing. Rinso injected some more chakra into Yamanaka Rino's body and instructed, You've lost quite a bit of blood, Annie, so don't move. Just wait here. The battle will be over soon. Rinso stood up, leaving a reassuring back to Yamanaka Rino and Ino, and walked out of the house. His shadow clone and Obito had already moved the battlefield outside while he was talking to Ino and her mother. That was a more suitable place to unleash their full power. Yamanaka Rino looked at Rinso's departing back, her voice weak but very earnest. Ino, Mama really approves of him. You must work hard in the future to strive for your own happiness. Yamanaka Rino gently stroked Ino's head, speaking earnestly. Ino's earlobes were slightly red. She should have been embarrassed and refuted, but at this moment, she only followed the voice in her heart and replied, She lowered her head, looking at the kunai tightly clutched in her palm. Not long ago, when she was emotionally agitated, her chakra leaked out, and she accidentally infused some into the kunai. Recalling what Rinso told her when he gave her the kunai, she finally understood how heavy this seemingly ordinary kunai truly was. Chapter 52 Battle with Obito, revealing the Mangekyo Sharingan. Outside the house, on the rooftop, Rinso's shadow clone slowly dispersed, and he himself flickered, standing in the original position of a shadow clone, facing Obito, separated by over 10 meters. Mariki Lin Sheng, Konoha is truly lucky to have produced such a genius like you, but unfortunately, you've met me, Uchiha Madara, so you won't be leaving today. Obito's voice was low and hoarse. Rinso sneered, disdainfully saying, Uchiha Madara, hiding your head and tail, not even daring to show your face, you're just a rat. To claim you're the former ninja world Azura is a joke. A piece of trash like you, who preys on others' wives and children, shouldn't disgrace the name Uchiha Madara. Beneath the mask, Obito's expression twisted slightly, suppressing the anger in his heart as he said, Noisy. With that, Obito gripped the katana at his waist and charged at Rinso. A sword fight? You're not worthy. Rinso reached behind him, grasping the sharp and long sword he had prepared, and blocked Obito's katana. Clang! The weapons hummed, as if striking the opening notes of this battle. Rinso's eyes narrowed, his attention fully focused, his normal dynamic vision instantly reaching its peak. The world in his eyes slowed down, and Obito's movements also decelerated significantly, like a child wielding a sword, utterly harmless. Whoosh! Whoosh! The moment Obito attacked, Rinso thrust two swords at extremely fast speed. The first sword hit. The second sword missed. Obito lowered his head slightly, surprised by the pain from his waist and abdomen. He was actually a beat too slow and got stabbed once. It wasn't due to surprise, nor was it an information gap. He simply failed to react in time. This was undoubtedly an extremely terrifying thing. He had a Mangekyo Sharingan. With the boost provided by his Mangekyo Sharingan, he had never encountered anyone in the ninja world who could directly attack him head-on. Rinso could do it. This could only mean one thing. Rinso's reaction ability was superior to his. What kind of monster is this? Obito almost lost control of his emotions, thinking to himself. His innate talent allowed his reaction speed to surpass his Mangekyo Sharingan. Is he even human? Realizing this, Obito began to retreat, opening a distance of over 10 meters from Rinso, then quickly formed hand signs. Fire release. Great fireball technique. A scorching fireball once again spewed from Obito's mouth. Rinso continued to counter with wood release. Less than a second after Obito spat out the fireball, he immediately formed hand signs, and a wood golem wall rose in front of him. Bang! The fireball struck the wood golem wall and instantly dissipated. Rinso also relaxed for a moment. However, in that instant of relaxation, Obito's figure phased through the wood golem wall, and the kunai in his hand instantly stabbed towards Rinso. Fortunately, Rinso's powerful reaction ability gave him a chance. He forcibly moved his body, shifting slightly, preventing the incoming kunai from hitting his heart. With a direct hit, Obito immediately pulled back again, opting for this underhanded fighting style. Rinso was disgusted and felt a surge of anger, but he said nothing, forming hand signs with both hands. Several shadow clones instantly appeared beside him. If he wanted to play dirty, then Obito shouldn't blame him for fighting multiple opponents. The shadow clones dispersed, instantly leaping around Obito, forming a pincer attack. Then they all threw kunai. Obito remained unfazed, his body instantly phasing, dodging all the kunai. However, what he didn't notice was that among the many kunai, one was mixed in that bore a flying thunder god mark. Just as Obito phased to dodge all the kunai and briefly returned to his real body to refresh his Kimui's time, one kunai that had passed through his body emitted a faint glow. Puff! Rinso appeared behind him, his longsword quickly piercing his back, tearing open a large wound. Obito immediately phased to avoid further damage, but a considerable wound still appeared on his chest, bleeding outwards. He distanced himself, looking at Rinso with a grim expression. His phasing, in essence, was transferring his body to a different dimension, making it impossible for others to hit him. The wounds that appeared on his body would continue to bleed even in the other dimension. Rinso's quick, precise, and ruthless strike successfully forced him to face a problem. That is, if he couldn't quickly deal with Rinso, his body would lose its fighting capability due to excessive blood loss. And whether it was a misconception or not, Obito felt that Rinso was intentionally avoiding the parts of his body composed of Hashirama cells, so the wounds he inflicted couldn't heal quickly. Damn brat. Obito couldn't help but curse, disgusted. He looked at Rinso, growing more and more alarmed the more he thought about it. Terrifying reaction speed, wood release, and chakra levels that would almost certainly not be inferior to the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, in the future. Top-tier swordsmanship, the flying thunder god technique. 5 natures ninjutsu with no weaknesses. It could be said that Rinso currently had virtually no weaknesses. Obito took a deep breath. He understood that if he didn't deal with Rinso this time, then when Rinso truly grew and filled all his weaknesses in the future, he would have even less of a chance. So this time, he must eliminate Rinso at all costs, using an aspect that Rinso absolutely could not resist right now. Jinjutsu. With the powerful visual prowess of his Mangekyo Sharingan, this would be his only chance to defeat Rinso. As long as he used the powerful Jinjutsu ability of his Mangekyo Sharingan, he could turn the tide of the battle. However, there was a practical problem facing Obito in doing so. That is, his Mangekyo Sharingan was currently constantly controlling someone. The 4th Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village, Yagura. If he were to unleash the Jinjutsu ability of his Mangekyo Sharingan now to quickly end the battle, he would inevitably have to withdraw the visual prowess used there. This would very likely allow Yagura to regain his will. It would then be difficult for him to control him again later. Obito narrowed his eyes and coldly snorted at Rinso. Compared to the 4th Mizukage, your future threat is greater. Obito no longer hesitated, instantly severing a subtle line of his Mangekyo Sharingan, retracting all his visual prowess. Then, he fully exerted himself, casting Jinjutsu on Rinso. He refused to believe that someone's innate reaction speed could surpass the Mangekyo Sharingan, while also having mental strength that surpassed the Mangekyo Sharingan. This time, he was determined to succeed. Obito's Sharingan pattern rotated in his eyes, and powerful visual prowess, accompanied by immense mental strength, invaded Rinso's mind. It's all over. Just as Obito thought he could successfully cast Jinjutsu on Rinso, his mental strength seemed to have fallen into a quagmire, becoming silent. Rinso's mental strength was not weaker than his. Obito realized this and looked at Rinso again. This time, what he saw was no longer those deep, pure black eyes, but a pair of eyes as red as blood, incredibly familiar to him. Mangekyo Sharingan. Chapter 53. Obito escapes. Father embraces daughter in front of him. Mangekyo Sharingan. Obito exclaimed, his expression under the mask changing like a Sichuan opera face-off, instantly becoming incredibly horrified. Without hesitation, he immediately stirred his chakra. He felt that the probability of him falling into a Jinjutsu was much higher than Rinso possessing the Mangekyo Sharingan. However, the calm chakra within him, and the powerful ocular power emanating from Rinso's eyes, made Obito clearly confirm one thing. Mariki Lin Sheng, this 4-year-old child who possessed the sage body, would release and had mastered the flying thunder god technique. Also possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Obito couldn't help but retreat 2 steps, feeling his worldview somewhat collapse. The Mangekyo Sharingan, which had been rare throughout the history of the entire Uchiha clan. Now, it had actually appeared on an outsider. Obito's mind was a bit muddled, but at this moment, he clearly understood that facing Mariki Lin Sheng, whom even Jinjutsu couldn't deal with, he, unprepared, could no longer have any chance of winning. Moreover, he could sense that while he was fighting Rinso, 2 powerful churkas were rushing towards him. Consider yourself lucky. Obito gave Rinso a final fierce look, then phased out and fled. Rinso also deactivated his Mangekyo Sharingan and sarcastically said, "If your strength was as great as your mouth, I would be the one running now." Creak. Obito gritted his teeth and left without looking back. He was defeated, completely defeated. He couldn't win in a fight, nor could he win in an argument. So wasn't it okay for him to just run? On the rooftop, Rinso watched Obito escape and did not pursue. The ability of Kimui dictated that as long as Obito didn't court death or suffer a direct dimension-crushing attack from a 6-paths level, Obito would basically not die. The Flying Thunder God technique he mastered only greatly increased his mobility, allowing him to seize the momentary interval of Obito's phasing and injure him. But if Obito kept not phasing, he couldn't do anything either. Looking at Obito's retreating figure, Rinso narrowed his eyes slightly. It seems I need to spend more time with Kakashi. If I can get the Kimui ability from him, then I'll have a real way to kill Obito when facing him in the future, Rinso pondered. Whoosh! A figure landed beside him. Shursu-sen, his face full of urgency, asked Rinso, "Rinso, where's the masked man?" Rinso shook his head. He escaped. Escaped? Did he cause any damage? What about the Yamanaka clan head's wife and child? Shursue-san asked anxiously. If Inoichi Yamanaka's wife and child had died, the impact would definitely not be small. Even if the clan heads knew the masked man was trying to sow discord between the Uchiha and Konoha, for the safety of their wives and children, they would have no choice but to go along with the masked man's plan, making the Uchiha a target again. Therefore, at this moment, the lives of Yamanaka Rino and Ino Yamanaka were of great importance. Aunt Rino was injured and lost a lot of blood, but her wounds have been healed by me. She just needs some rest. Ino is fine, Rinso said, feeling a sense of lingering fear. He had just given the Flying Thunder God Kanai to Ino today. If it had been even half a day later, he might never have seen the girl who always brought him various things and always took care of his feelings. Thinking of this, Rinso even felt a pang of guilt. His little butterfly effect seemed to have almost killed Ino Yamanaka, who was originally supposed to live to the end and have a peaceful life. However, the feeling of guilt did not last too long. He was not someone who dwelled on things. Although the butterfly effect he caused almost killed Ino, nothing really happened in the end, and it actually saved many people who might have died. Overall, the good outweighed the bad. Of course, Rinso still planned to treat Ino better in the future, if for no other reason than to make himself feel better. They're all fine? That's great. Shursu-san exhaled, his expression relaxing. With his tense nerves released, Shursu-san scanned the severely damaged rooftop, Rinso's wood golem wall, the scorch marks left by Obito's fire release ninjutsu, the scratches left on the tiles when the two fought with swords, and the kunai stuck in various places on the rooftop. Shursu-san seemed to be able to imagine that a fierce battle had taken place here not long ago. Rinso, did you force him to retreat? Shursue-san realized the key point, his pupils widening slightly. Having fought the masked man, he knew perfectly well. The masked man was extremely powerful. His strong physical fitness and recovery ability, half of Hashirama cells. His phasing that made him immune to any physical attacks. And the reaction speed and Jinjutsu ability brought by his Mangekyo Sharingan made him quite powerless in battle. But now it seemed that the opponent he found quite difficult to deal with was just SOSO in Rinso's hands. Rinso, your strength. Shursue-san couldn't help but want to ask. Rinso shook his head and smiled. It's also thanks to Shursue-san for rushing over. Otherwise, if it were just me, he might not have escaped. Shursue didn't ask any further, smiling. Never mind, it's your own secret I won't ask. Rinso nodded, his gaze shifting. Not far away, Hiruzen Sarutobi, dressed in battle attire, arrived late. Upon arriving, he looked at the messy rooftop and Rinso and Shursu-san standing on it, and immediately asked, "Were there any casualties?" "No, everything is fine. Thanks to Rinso arriving in time." Shursu-san did not take credit. "Is that so?" Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced at Rinso. His clothes were torn in front, stained with some blood, seemingly from a kunai stab, but the wound had already healed itself. He immediately understood that what Shursue-san said was true. He jumped on a rooftop and nodded affirmatively at Rinso. "Well done, little Rinso. You've made a great contribution this time. You can exchange it for a ninjutsu from the Scroll of Seals." Ninjutsu from the Scroll of Seals. Rinso's face lit up with joy, not expecting such a reward. There were so many ninjutsu in the Scroll of Seals, and good ones were not limited to multiple shadow clone jutsu and flying thunder god technique. Being able to learn a ninjutsu from it would definitely strengthen him now. Moreover, this reward was completely unexpected, so he was naturally surprised. Thank you, third grandfather. Given his age, Rinso called out without any burden. Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded, overjoyed to see that Rinso seemed to have grown a bit closer to him. Then, with a burning heart, he said, "Little Rinso, would you like to learn combination ninjutsu with Grandpa?" Combination ninjutsu? I'd love to, thank you, third grandfather. For Rinso, too many cooks spoil the broth was nonsense. At most, it was just a matter of splitting a shadow clone, so he did not refuse Hiruzen Sarutobi's kind offer at all. Good. Then little Rinso come find Grandpa tomorrow. For now, let's go see what the actual situation is. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression instantly turned cold. Next time, I will absolutely not let that masked man escape. Rinso simply dismissed Hiruzen Sarutobi's boast as empty words and paid no attention, directly jumping through the broken window back to the second floor of Ino's house. On the second floor, Ino was holding Yamanaka Rino. Seeing Rinso return, she immediately showed a joyful expression. "You're back." Ino ran forward and hugged Rinso tightly, not letting go. Rinso naturally reached out his hands, just about to hug Ino back, when he caught a glimpse of several figures appearing in the room. Uchiha Shursui, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and Ino's father, the Yamanaka clan head, Inoichi Yamanaka. Chapter 54. One night in the same bed with Ino. The hand suspended in the air paused slightly. Under Inoichi Yamanaka's gaze, Rinso still lowered his hand and hugged Ino. What a joke. He and Ino were only 4-year-old children. What was wrong with a hug? Besides, he had saved Yamanaka Rino and Ino, so a hug was only natural. Sure enough, facing his daughter and Mariki Lin Sheng, who were embracing each other, Inoichi Yamanaka showed no other expression. Instead, he bowed deeply to Mariki Lin Sheng with utmost solemnity. "Thank you. No need. Uncle, Ino and I are partners. It's what I should do." Rinso naturally didn't feel unworthy of the bow, but he still politely declined. Inoichi Yamanaka's expression was serious. "No, Rinso, if it weren't for you, Rino and Ino would not have survived tonight. Uncle truly thanks you." Saying this, he extended his hand, stopping Rinso from speaking. Then, he looked at Hiruzen Sarutobi. "Hokage-sama, my contribution from mission should be enough for me to exchange for a high-level ninjutsu, right?" Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded in agreement. "Yes, it is indeed enough to exchange for a high-level ninjutsu." "Inoichi, what do you mean?" Inoichi Yamanaka smiled and said, "I heard Ino say that Rinso particularly enjoys practicing ninjutsu. Since that's the case, my contribution will be used for Rinso to exchange for a high-level ninjutsu." Rinso originally wanted to say, "You're too kind, uncle. I didn't help Ino for anything." However, after hearing Inoichi Yamanaka's offer, his body instinctively closed his mouth. One high-level ninjutsu, plus the one Hiruzen Sarutobi promised. Wouldn't that be 2 powerful ninjutsu? Refuse? Refuse what? The benefits given by his future father-in-law. Why not take them? Rinso looked at Inoichi Yamanaka with a determined gaze. Inoichi Yamanaka's expression was strange. He felt that Rinso's gaze towards him was a bit off, or rather, this "I approve of you" look, shouldn't he be giving it to Rinso? Suppressing the slight oddness in his heart, Inoichi Yamanaka walked towards Yamanaka Rino, passing his right hand under her bent legs and carrying her in a princess carry. "Hokage-sama, I'm taking Rino to the Konoha hospital now." Inoichi Yamanaka excused himself, taking an unconventional route by jumping out of the broken window on the second floor and heading straight for the Konoha hospital. "I'll also be leaving first," Hiruzen Sarutobi said, then steadily walked down the stairs to leave. "I also need to check on the situation elsewhere, so I'll be going now." Shursui nodded to Rinso and Ino, then used the body flicker technique to depart. At this point, the once lively second floor was instantly left with only Rinso and Ino. Ino sniffled, looking at the broken window on the second floor. The cold air poured into her house through this opening, making a humming, wailing sound. Accompanied by the lights damaged by the battle, it made the place seem like a haunted house. Rinso, Ino fearfully clutched Rinso's clothes. Usually boisterous, she now rarely showed a pitiful expression. Her eyes, red from crying, looked at Rinso, making him unable to bear leaving her behind. "How about you stay at my place for the night?" Understanding that the place was temporarily uninhabitable, or rather, too scary for a 4-year-old, Rinso suggested to Ino. Ino seemed cold. She buried her head in Rinso's chest and softly murmured, However, When her nose twitched and she smelled the scent of blood on Rinso's clothes, she instantly recoiled, her expression becoming incredibly worried. Blood. Chakra surged in Rinso's palm, and flames rose from his hand, providing light so Ino could see the condition of his chest. I got a little hurt during the fight, but it's not serious. It's already healed. See, really? Ino looked closely, even reaching out to touch it. It was firm, making her linger for a few extra seconds. It wasn't until Rinso gave her a suspicious look that she feigned a sigh of relief and said, "It's really fine. All right, let's go then." Rinso put his arm around Ino, chakra flowed, and the hand seal-less ninjutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, activated. Sensing a Flying Thunder God mark he had left at his home, he instantly teleported back with Ino. Ino opened her eyes and found herself in a different place, her eyes full of curiosity. This was her first time experiencing such a novel sensation. However, just as she was looking around Rinso's living room, Rinso casually spoke to the man sitting on the living room sofa. "Dad, I'm home." "Dad." Ino instantly jolted and looked at the man on the sofa. He was a man with features somewhat similar to Rinso's, with a distinct, chiseled face and refined, rugged features, a handsome uncle through and through. "Are you done with what you needed to do?" Mariki Jiniki glanced at his son and spoke calmly. "Yes, I'm done. I won't go into details with you, Dad. Anyway, Ino's house was destroyed, and she needs to stay at our place for a night. Is that okay?" Rinso seemed to be seeking permission, but in reality, he was already thinking about where Ino should sleep. Mariki Jiniki glanced at Ino, smiled, and nodded. "Ino, we don't have any spare rooms right now, so you'll have to share a room with Rinso for the night. Is that all right?" Ino's face flushed slightly, and she nervously tugged at her clothes. I'm fine with anything." Mariki Jiniki's expression remained normal. What could two 4-year-old children do sleeping together for one night? Soon, Rinso brought Ino to his room, and without a second thought, he took off his damaged shirt, revealing his well-trained and unusually muscular upper body, which had been accelerated by long-term chakra use. Though only 4 years old, he was already about the size of a 7- or 8-year-old child, and this was compared to 8-year-olds in the Hokage world. In his previous life, he was comparable to some middle school students, a veritable prodigy. Compared to Ino, Rinso was even a head and a half taller than her. "My bed is a single bed. I'll lay a mat on the floor later, and you can sleep on the floor, Ino." Rinso arranged. At the same time, he opened his closet and rummaged for his spare bedding and pajamas. "Sleep on the floor?" Ino was slightly surprised, then shook her head. "No." Rinso looked at her, frowning. "Do you want me to sleep on the floor?" Rinso was certain that if Ino wanted him to sleep on the floor, he would dare to let Ino sleep on the living room sofa herself. He wasn't a simp. Although he was happy to help Ino, he would never make himself uncomfortable. Fortunately, Ino wasn't that kind of girl. Hearing Rinso's words, she immediately shook her head. "No, that's not it. I mean, I'll sleep on the bed with you. It'll be enough if we squeeze a bit." Ino turned her head away, a little embarrassed. Rinso thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Soon after, he and Ino turned their backs to each other and changed into their pajamas. He lay on the bed, pulled back the covers, and patted the spot next to him. "Come, get on the bed." Ino shyly climbed onto the bed, wearing Rinso's pajamas and covered by Rinso's blanket. The strong Rinso scent made her head feel dizzy, and her body was so excited it made her energetic. Compared to her, Rinso was very quiet. Although he hadn't suffered any major injuries during the previous battle, he was still a bit tired. Because of this, even if Ino dropped something at that moment, Rinso barely looked at it. After picking it up, he immediately closed his eyes and fell asleep. The merging could wait until tomorrow. Ino Yamanaka dropped. "Ian release talent? Pick up? Yes/no." Beside him, Ino listened to Rinso's breathing after he fell asleep. She carefully pulled her head into the covers, then wiggled into Rinso's arms. Her entire body was enveloped in warmth, and a faint sense of security washed over her. Only then did sleepiness surge in her heart. She felt that she could tell Hinata and Tintin about sleeping in the same bed with Rinso today. It was both a boast and a way to make the two of them retreat in the face of difficulty. Anyway, she had made up her mind about Rinso. Chapter 55, Selecting Ninjutsu, featuring various powerful ninjutsu. The morning sun shone through the window onto Rinso's bed. Ino lay there, her mouth opening and closing, with crystal-clear drool dripping onto Rinso's pillow. After a while, her hand, perhaps due to the sun, felt a touch of warmth, and Ino contentedly opened her eyes. She still thought she was at home, rubbing her sleepy eyes, and called out in a spoiled tone, "Mommy!" Cough. Rinso lightly coughed to remind her. Ino instantly opened her eyes and saw Rinso, who had already dressed and gotten out of bed, holding a toothbrush and cup, brushing his teeth, and looking at her from the bedside. Her face instantly flushed red. She finally remembered what happened last night, and the fact that she had slept with Rinso last night. Thinking of this, she pulled the covers over her head and said angrily, I'm going back to sleep for a bit. Rinso shrugged helplessly, saying with toothpaste foam in his mouth, sleep if you want, but remember to fold the covers later. With that, Rinso walked out of the room and went to the bathroom to rinse his mouth. When he returned to the room, Ino had folded the covers with astonishing speed, gotten dressed, and was sitting uncomfortably on the edge of the bed. I prepared your toothbrush and cup for you. They're in the bathroom. You can see them. My mom also finished making breakfast. You're the only one who hasn't eaten yet. Eat first, then brush your teeth. Rinso, like an old father, patiently instructed her. Ino nodded, indicating that she understood, and gradually, she felt less shy. Finally, Ino, when you go to the training ground later, please tell Tintin and Naruto that I won't be coming today because I have something to do. After saying this last sentence, Rinso waved his hand and left the room. Goodbye. Ino also waved her hand, watching Rinso leave. After confirming Rinso's departure, her gaze began to wander around Rinso's room, as if she had discovered a treasure trove. He walked into the Hokage's office. This was Rinso's second time here. Last time, he was grabbed by the Umbu and quickly taken to the Hokage's office. Counting it, this time was his first true walk into the Hokage's office. Walking through places that never appeared in the original work, Rinso observed as he went, casually leaving a flying thunder god mark in a hidden corner. It wasn't for any particular purpose, just a personal habit, like when exploring a map. Even if a building behind another building would absolutely never be used, he would still light up that building. He took a step, and suddenly, the view opened up. The Hokage's office, with its door open, appeared in Rinso's field of vision. The first thing that caught his eye was the large window with an excellent view, which brightened one's mood considerably. Immediately after, he saw Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was busy processing a stack of documents. Rinso didn't walk in rashly, but politely knocked 3 times on the open door with his knuckles. Dong dong dong. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked up at the sound, and seeing Mariki Lin Sheng, a smile immediately appeared on his old face. Little Rinso has arrived. Just in time. Grandpa just finished rushing through the documents, and it's time to teach you ninjutsu. Third, Grandpa. I'd like to choose a ninjutsu first, if that's all right. Rinso asked. Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded, stood up, and said, you want to choose a ninjutsu, that's fine. Come with Grandpa then. With that, Hiruzen Sarutobi walked out of the office, leading Rinso to the place where the ninjutsu scrolls were stored. After a short while they arrived. It was a very strictly guarded place. Even Hiruzen Sarutobi was checked to ensure he wasn't a transformation jutsu disguise before being allowed in. This reminded Rinso of Naruto stealing the scroll of seals in the original work. Perhaps, at that time, Hiruzen Sarutobi had truly turned a blind eye and actively allowed Naruto to learn it. Little Rinso, choose. These ninjutsu scrolls all have corresponding descriptions. Tell Grandpa once you've chosen, and Grandpa will remove the seals on them, Hiruzen Sarutobi said. Rinso came back to his senses, his eyes lighting up as he looked at the small room, not large in area, but filled with ninjutsu scrolls. He walked to the nearest shelf and began to browse carefully. After looking for a while, Rinso realized that while there were many scrolls here, there weren't actually that many ninjutsu. Typically, one ninjutsu scroll would be accompanied by several, or even more than 10, scrolls of various introductions, precautions, and cultivation insights. Even who created the ninjutsu, and when it was created, were recorded in separate scrolls. Rinso actually liked this overly detailed introduction. Anyway, no matter how many ninjutsu there were, he could only pick 2 to learn. Reading these introductions more might give him some ideas, so that he could create his own ninjutsu in the future. Of course, time was tight now, and Rinso couldn't read all the introductions. Before coming, he already knew which ninjutsu he wanted to choose. So he just quickly browsed the scrolls, looking for his 2 target ninjutsu. Darkness Technique, and A-rank Jinjutsu, invented by the second Hokage to counter the Uchiha. Rinso carefully looked at the specific effects and description. It wasn't that he wanted to learn it, but that he wanted to guard against it. After all, he now possessed both the Uchiha Bloodline and the Mangekyo Sharingan, making him purer than most Uchiha. However, after browsing, Rinso found that the Darkness Technique was only effective against 2-Tomo Sharingan with relatively low ocular power. Its effectiveness was greatly reduced against 3-Tomo. If used on his Mangekyo, it would be completely ineffective. So, he casually put down this ninjutsu. A-rank ninjutsu without hand signs, Rasengan. Rinso carefully read the description. It wasn't that he didn't know this ninjutsu. It was just that by reading the description now, if he were to use the Rasengan later, he could claim that the idea was inspired here and created through his own talent, giving him a legitimate excuse. A-rank forbidden jutsu, mutual exploding tag. Rinso looked at it with a hint of interest but then put it down. This ninjutsu was quite impressive in terms of creativity and power, but its indiscriminate nature, affecting both friend and foe, made it difficult to handle, so it was not among his two choices this time. After that, the eight-headed serpent technique, an S-rank ninjutsu, but he had already acquired it from Orochimaru, so it was naturally excluded. Edo Tensei, Creation Rebirth. One ninjutsu after another flashed before Rinso's eyes, being excluded one by one. Edo Tensei was powerful, but the version was outdated and the effect was mediocre. What Rinso really wanted was Yakushi Kabuto's 3.0 version, or at least Orochimaru's 2.0 version, not this lackluster 1.0 version. Creation Rebirth, when used, accelerates cell division and provides rapid self-healing. Its effect is indeed powerful. But with his Uzumaki and Senju bloodline, if he developed them well, even without this ninjutsu in the future, his self-healing ability wouldn't be much worse, so it was also excluded. He continued to search. After another moment, Rinso finally found the two ninjutsu he had planned for, quickly scanned them, and then handed them to Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen Sarutobi took them, his expression surprised. These two ninjutsu? I know the setting of darkness technique was created by the first Hokage, and it wasn't modified even in the later stages of the manga. However, I feel that in the anime, it was created by the second Hokage to counter the Uchiha, which is more reasonable than the first Hokage creating it. So, here I'm following the anime's setting. Chapter 56, S-Rank Spirit Transformation Technique, A-Rank Sealing Technique, A-Rank Illusion Technique. This chapter is mostly about ninjutsu introductions. Those who know can skip it. S-Rank Ninjutsu, Spiritualization Technique. A-Rank Ninjutsu, 5-Element Seal. These were the two ninjutsu Rinso chose. What surprised Hiruzen Sarutobi was the spiritualization technique. This ninjutsu was even rarer and more difficult to master than the Flying Thunder God technique. In fact, only Kato Dan had ever successfully learned it, with no one else achieving it. Whether this spiritualization technique could truly be mastered was uncertain. But what was certain was that even if successful, the drawbacks of this ninjutsu were significant. When the soul leaves the body has no defense whatsoever, making it extremely dangerous. Rinso had already learned the Flying Thunder God technique, which was sufficient as a trump card ninjutsu. Learning another spiritualization technique seemed somewhat unnecessary. This was why Hiruzen was surprised. He had originally thought Rinso might choose a ninjutsu for himself in the Jinjutsu category, such as the darkness technique, which he felt was very suitable for Rinso. Thinking of this, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, "Little Rinso, you can try the spiritualization technique, but if you find it too difficult, don't waste any more time on it. Also, you should have seen a Jinjutsu called the darkness technique just now. I'll give it to you as well, you can practice it." Saying this, Hiruzen Sarutobi picked up the ninjutsu scroll for the darkness technique and, along with the spiritualization technique and 5-element seal, unsealed them and handed them to Rinso. Rinso accepted the three ninjutsu with a surprised expression. The pleasant surprise had come too suddenly. The darkness technique, although he hadn't considered choosing it. This A-rank ninjutsu was undoubtedly very powerful. Once he learned it and enhanced it with his Mangekyo Sharingan, it would definitely be a great asset in his Jinjutsu domain. "Thank you, third Hokage-sama." Rinso held the three ninjutsu together and thanked him respectfully. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled and nodded, then said, "All right, let's go. Put these three ninjutsu aside for now, and come with me to learn combination ninjutsu." Okay. Rinso nodded in agreement, also very interested in combination ninjutsu. It wasn't that he was interested in a specific ninjutsu. Rather, it was Hiruzen Sarutobi's insights into combination ninjutsu that truly mattered to him. How to better combine two ninjutsu, and when to release them. These were all things he wanted to learn from Hiruzen Sarutobi. Once he learned them, he could create the combination ninjutsu he desired according to his own ideas. However, not everything goes as planned. Just as Rinso was about to leave with Hiruzen Sarutobi to learn combination ninjutsu, an AMBU ninja suddenly appeared. He knelt on one knee and reported to Hiruzen Sarutobi, "Hokage-sama, the Yamanaka clan head is waiting for you in the reception room to discuss the masked man's matter." "Is Inoichi waiting for me?" Hiruzen Sarutobi frowned slightly and replied, "Tell him I'll be there shortly." "Yes, Hokage-sama." The Ambu shushed and left. Hiruzen Sarutobi then looked at Rinso and said, "Little Rinso, you go practice these three ninjutsu first. The combination ninjutsu will have to be postponed." Rinso nodded in understanding. "Okay, third Hokage-sama." Although he felt a little disappointed, he wasn't too upset. For him, the spiritualization technique and 5-element seal also had high priority. He would have to practice them eventually. Carrying the 3 ninjutsu, Rinso left the Hokage building. Because he was carrying 3 powerful ninjutsu, Rinso did not go to the training ground, but instead headed straight to the secret base. Although Ino and the others knew about this place, they had mostly forgotten about it and would never come here, making it very suitable for him to practice certain ninjutsu that needed to be kept hidden. Placing the 3 ninjutsu scrolls on the ground, Rinso randomly opened one. The darkness technique. Rinso quickly scanned it, recording the chakra flow trajectory and hand signs. He then immediately created a shadow clone. Master the darkness technique, Rinso commanded. The shadow clone Rinso nodded and, with a few shushin, went 100 meters away, beginning to practice alone, not disturbing Rinso's main body. After assigning a shadow clone to the darkness technique, Rinso no longer paid it much mind. With his Jinjutsu talent and Ninjutsu talent, even an A-rank Jinjutsu wouldn't require much effort from him. One shadow clone dedicated to practice was already sufficient. Closing the Ninjutsu scroll for the darkness technique, Rinso again randomly opened one of the remaining 2 scrolls. A-rank 5-element seal. This was the sealing technique Rinso chose after careful consideration. It would compensate for his shortcomings in sealing technique. The reason he didn't choose the more famous 4-symbol seal was that, compared to the 4-symbol seal which was used to seal giant creatures, the 5-element seal, specifically for dealing with people, was more suitable for him. He would likely not encounter tail beasts for a very long time. By the time he could truly encounter and face them, he would have accumulated enough contributions to exchange for the 4-symbol seal then, which would not be too late. Opening the Ninjutsu scroll, he read it carefully. He gained a deeper understanding of this sealing technique, which, though not prominent in the original work, had impressive effects. In the original work, Orochimaru used it to disrupt Naruto's chakra, making him unable to even refine chakra, essentially a ruthless seal that could cripple a person. Fortunately, this ninjutsu used 5-element chakra for sealing, so there was a corresponding unsealing method, the 5 elements unseal. Although difficult, even without knowing the 5 elements unseal, breaking the 5-element seal would still only take more effort. And Rinso, despite the 5-element seal having a specific release method, still chose it. This was because he had his own improvements, or rather, an evolution method. Since the original 5-element seal used a mutual restraint of 5-element chakra to disrupt the opponent's chakra, making them unable to refine chakra. Then, could he not add Yin release and Yang release to this foundation? These 2 rare attributes, which most people in the ninja world didn't even possess one of. If added, how many people would still be able to unseal it? Thinking this, Rinso immediately created 5 shadow clones and instructed them. You 5, quickly learn this sealing technique. The 5 shadow clones nodded rationally, gathered together, and went to a distant spot to begin studying and practicing the 5-element seal. Finally, Rinso turned his attention to the last ninjutsu scroll. There was no doubt now. Opening it, the specific training methods for the spiritualization technique appeared before Rinso's eyes. Similar to the Flying Thunder God technique, the spiritualization technique had no difficulty in terms of chakra flow lines and hand signs. At least, that was the case for him. Likewise, the spiritualization technique, like the Flying Thunder God technique, had a prerequisite. The Flying Thunder God technique required spatiotemporal talent, the ability to perceive spatial coordinates. The spiritualization technique, on the other hand, required the user to possess soul talent, which meant powerful Yin release talent and strong soul perception. Coincidentally, Rinso met all the requirements. The amplification brought by the Mangekyo Sharingan was simply too overpowered. Chapter 57 Soul Perception, the appearance of a powerful soul. Of course, besides the boost brought by the Mangekyo Sharingan, which gave Rinso the capital to learn spiritualization technique. The Yin release talent dropped by Ino also gave him more confidence. In the original work, Ino's talent in her family's secret ninjutsu was quite good. In the Yamanaka clan's secret ninjutsu happened to be the rare Yin release ninjutsu. It was clear that Ino's Yin release talent was also very good. Therefore, when Rinso woke up and found that Ino had dropped this item, he was happy for a while. After integrating it through the system, Rinso realized that his happiness was indeed justified. Yin release talent, in essence, is a talent of the spiritual side. So after integration, he found that his spiritual perception and spiritual manipulation were both stronger. Even the special chakra unique to the Uchiha within the brain was secreted in greater amounts. Thinking about it this way, those who gradually became mere bystanders in the original work actually all possessed their own powerful talents, like Tintin's spacetime talent, Ino's Yin release talent, Hinata's high-density Byakugan. Recalling how the girls in the original work all stopped at most at the Jonin level, Rinso felt some thoughts of wanting to change things. Tenten space-time talent is good. Perhaps in the future, I can create a space-time ninjutsu suitable for her based on the Flying Thunder God. And the same goes for Ino. Release ninjutsu shouldn't be difficult for me. Rinso was quite attentive to these girls. After all, he was not a parasite who only took. Even if his kindness to them daily was voluntary on their part, Rinso still didn't want to take advantage of them with a clear conscience. Creating a ninjutsu suitable for them in the future would be a small return from him. I'm thinking too far ahead. I should learn the spiritualization technique first. Rinso collected his thoughts. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Rinso held his hands with fingers pointing skyward, concentrating his attention, and slowly began to use his soul perception. Slowly, the special released chakra belonging to the brain began to secrete. Beneath his closed eyelids, the Mangekyo Sharingan slowly rotated. And it was precisely after the Mangekyo Sharingan appeared that Rinso instantly felt his soul perception greatly amplified. Centered on himself, his soul's perception slowly spread out. 3 meters to his left, a flying insect landed on the ground, its soul faint and thin. 10 meters behind him, earthworms in the soil wriggled, with nothing to hide. At 100 meters, at 1,000 meters. Gradually, in Rinso's mind, he had constructed a complete map. Unlike chakra perception, this map constructed with soul perception clearly showed even insects and birds that had no chakra. And Rinso found that he didn't even feel a trace of fatigue doing all this. The mental power of 2 lives combined with the amplification of the Mangekyo Sharingan made my basic spiritual attributes terrifyingly high, plus the release talent dropped by Ino, which naturally made me understand how to reduce mental power consumption. It seems I'm naturally suited to learning release ninjutsu. Rinso pondered, finding his answer. At this moment, his soul perception range was still expanding. The entire outer area of Konoha, from his family's orchard, was enveloped. Konoha villagers, whose soul strength far surpassed that of insects and birds, began to appear in his perception, giving him a preliminary understanding of what an ordinary person's soul strength was like. Afterward, his soul perception continued to expand. Konoha's outskirts, central area, core, commercial street, Hokage building, clan territories, training grounds, some even stronger souls appeared in Rinso's perception. Especially at the training grounds, Shirsue's mental power was the highest, his soul even emitting a dazzling radiance. As he perceived, Shirsue even looked up in his direction. So sensitive. Rinso chuckled, then prepared to observe Sasuke, who was training at the training grounds. This little tsundere, after witnessing his strength several times, still hadn't given up challenging him. He was currently learning the great fireball technique and could already release it, fantasizing confidently. However, while he could release it, the power, Rinso compared Obito's and Sasuke's, which was like the difference between a pinky finger and an arm. And Obito's great fireball couldn't even break his own defense, so pathetic Sasuke. Rinso sighed, just about to carefully observe Sasuke's soul, when his expression suddenly changed. This was because his expanding soul perception, after a certain expansion, suddenly perceived an extremely powerful soul. This power was not just in comparison to ordinary people, but in comparison to himself. Moreover, this power was not just a little stronger, but at least twice as strong. Konoha village had such an existence? Rinso immediately retracted his soul perception, fully focusing on sensing that suddenly appearing powerful soul, locking onto its approximate location. He continued to investigate carefully, outlining the person's appearance. Through the outline figure, Rinso made a rough judgment. The gender was female, and her figure was even smaller than his, roughly like a 5 or 6-year-old child, similar to Tenten. Excluding the possibility of dwarfism, this person's age might be just 1 year older than him. My goodness, to possess such a powerful soul at this age, she's truly a monster. Rinso murmured, apparently unaware that he himself appeared the same way to others. After observing for a while, Rinso found that the girl seemed to be in a coma, lying alone in the forest above the Hokage rock, motionless, asleep, or unconscious for some reason. It's dangerous in the wild. I should warn her. Thinking this, Rinso decided to use soul stimulation to wake her up. This was also a technique recorded in the spiritualization technique, how to control the power of the soul. Once he could skillfully control it, he could begin the next step of training for soul detachment. However, Rinso clearly underestimated the girl's powerful soul's instinct. Just as he used soul power to stimulate the girl, her soul's instinct launched a counterattack, directly attacking his soul from a distance. Ugh! Rinso clutched his forehead. A stinging pain shot through his head, and it took a while to return to normal. Fisk, no good deed goes unpunished. Rinso couldn't help but feel a bit resentful. But more than that, he was curious. He was truly curious about the girl with such a powerful soul. With such talent, she should have made quite a name for herself in the original work. Even if she died young, he should remember it. I'll go see directly. Although the girl's soul was stronger, Rinso was very confident in his own strength, especially the Flying Thunder God technique, plus his 2 life-saving ocular ninjutsu. Let alone at this point in time. Even when facing Uchiha Madara and Otsutsuki Kagaya later on, he was confident he could escape. So, Rinso didn't dally, sensing the closest Flying Thunder God mark to that location. He instantly teleported there. After traveling a bit further, he arrived at the place where the girl was perceived to be unconscious. It seemed due to his stimulation, the girl had already woken up and was rubbing her temples, her eyes recovering from a daze to clarity. Chapter 58 Yakumo Kurama, the terrifying bloodline limit. Konoha. On a small mountain on the outskirts, overlooking all of Konoha, the girl sat on the lush green hillside, her eyes gradually clearing. Then, she saw Rinso not far from her, observing her. Instinctively, she opened her mouth and said, "It's you." Hearing the girl say that, Rinso showed a puzzled expression. "You know me?" The girl shook her head and said, "No, but you were spying on me a while ago." Rinso showed a surprised look. He was currently suppressing his soul perception, yet the girl could recognize him directly. Noticing Rinso's surprise, the girl smiled and said, "This is my talent. I'm a bit better than ordinary people at perceiving such things." A bit better than ordinary people? Rinso complained silently in his heart, too lazy to argue. "Why are you sleeping here? You might encounter poisonous insects," Rinso asked. The girl pursed her lips, revealing a hint of helplessness. "It's not that I wanted to sleep, I accidentally fainted. I've been very weak since childhood, spending a long time sleeping every day, but occasionally I still fall unconscious. I came here to sketch the scenery, and I accidentally fainted," the girl said without much guard towards Rinso, who helped her wake up and seemed not much older than her. Rinso looked at the girl, but had a different judgment in his heart. In his opinion, the girl's physical fitness was not weak. On the contrary, she was healthier than many ordinary children. The reason she slept most of the time and often fainted was probably not due to physical weakness, but because her soul was too powerful. So powerful that her body was almost unable to bear the mighty soul, requiring long periods of dormancy to avoid collapse. He glanced at the wooden drawing board next to the girl. The colorful paints perfectly replicated all of Konoha on the small piece of paper. Powerful soul power, similar age, excellent painting talent. These characteristics combined little by little in Rinso's mind, awakening some memories he had almost forgotten. Suddenly, a sharp glint flashed in Rinso's eyes. The girl who had only appeared for a few episodes in the anime came to his mind. To confirm, he asked the girl, "What's your name?" The girl, without much guard, politely said, "Onma Yakumo, and you?" "Onma Yakumo." The moment this name came out, Rinso remembered everything. The Jinjutsu genius who only appeared for a few episodes in the anime, Onma Yakumo. The Kurama clan, a great Jinjutsu clan that was once almost on par with the Uchiha clan. Their family's inherited bloodline limit, demonic illusion, 5 senses Jinjutsu, could use Jinjutsu to affect the real world, almost like the magical brush of Malion. With such a terrifying bloodline limit, let alone being on par with the Uchiha. If truly compared, the Uchiha Sharingan might actually be the one punching above its weight. However, unlike the Sharingan, which every Uchiha could potentially awaken, the Kurama clan's bloodline limit might only appear once every few generations. It was precisely because of this that the Kurama clan gradually declined, and now there isn't even a Jonin in the clan. However, just as the Kurama clan was almost fading into obscurity, Onma Yakumo was born. This genius possessed astonishing Jinjutsu talent and awakened the family's bloodline limit. Yet, God opened a door for her, but also closed a window. Born with a weak constitution, she couldn't even enter the ninja academy. To cultivate her, the Kurama clan invited Kurenai Yuhi, who was then Konoha's foremost Jinjutsu master, to teach her. But Yuhi saw Onma Yakumo's excessive frailty, understood that Onma Yakumo was destined not to become a qualified ninja, and had no choice but to seal her power. Unexpectedly, this not only failed to extinguish Onma Yakumo's dream of becoming a Jinjutsu ninja, but also fostered resentment, leading to the birth of a second personality. The birth of a second personality was not an issue in itself, but Onma Yakumo's soul strength was immense, and her second personality was truly capable of affecting reality and killing people. Thus, unconsciously, Onma Yakumo's second personality acted as a filial child, making her an orphan. But Onma Yakumo didn't know. So she resented Hiruzen Sarutobi, believing that Hiruzen Sarutobi had sent people to kill her parents. Regarding this, Rinso just wanted to say, the third Hokage was an old schemer. One more pot of blame wouldn't matter, one less wouldn't either. Anyway, by the time Ama Yakumo truly mastered her power and wanted to kill Hiruzen Sarutobi was already dead, and the fifth Hokage, Tsunade, bore the brunt of it, getting struck by lightning. And after that, it was the much-anticipated revelation of the truth and the making dumpling segment. With the efforts of Kurenai Yuhi and Naruto, Onma Yakumo's second personality was successfully resolved, and everyone was happy. After that, Onma Yakumo did not appear again. A character who appeared for no more than 5 episodes in the anime might not be noticed by many. But in the real world, how could a girl with such a terrifying bloodline limit not be taken seriously? So, after a brief thought, Rinso showed a kind smile and said, "My name is Mariki Lin Shang, and there's something I don't know if I should say." "What is it?" Looking at the handsome boy in front of her, Onma Yakumo naturally developed some fondness and was willing to chat. "You often fall asleep, probably not because you are weak, but because your spiritual power is too strong," Rinso stated his guess. Onma Yakumo fell into thought upon hearing this. If it were anyone else, she might not have believed it. But she had perceived Rinso's spiritual power just now. Although not as strong as hers, it was the strongest she had ever encountered since childhood. Both had very strong spiritual power, but Rinso was full of vitality, his body very robust, and the surging life force emanating from him somewhat captivated her. What such a person said, perhaps, was true. Your spiritual power is too strong, so much so that your body cannot match it, forcing you to sleep for long periods, getting tired easily, and no matter how hard you train, the results are minimal, right? Rinso asked, though he was quite certain. Onma Yakumo nodded, her eyes bewildered. Then what should I do? 2 methods. One is to diligently train your body, and the other is to learn to control your own soul. Train my body, but I already train very hard normally. As for controlling my soul, how should I do that? Onma Yakumo was only a 5-year-old child. She was already bewildered and didn't know what to do, so she could only look to Rinso for help. In response, Rinso no longer hid his intentions, revealing his true motive. "I have ways for both, so would you like to train with me from now on?" He wasn't pretending anymore. He was laying his cards on the table. He said all that to get Onma Yakumo to train with him and get along well. That bloodline limit that could manipulate the 5 senses and make Jinjutsu affect reality. He was determined to have it. Chapter 59, The Shadow Clone of a Wagakure Dissipates. "Together with you?" Onma Yakumo showed a wary expression, extremely hesitant. Although she had developed some trust in Rinso's words, it felt strange for Rinso to invite her directly on their very first meeting. "That's right, besides me, there are others. They're at the Konoha village training ground. Tenten, Ino, Hinata, all girls around your age," Rinso said, noticing Onma Yakumo's concerns. "At the Konoha training ground?" Onma Yakumo felt a little relieved, and after hearing that there were other girls besides her, she let go of most of her worries. If that's the case, then nothing should go wrong. However, she now had one question, which was also her last lingering concern. "Why do you want to help me?" Facing Onma Yakumo's question, Rinso had long anticipated it. The corners of his mouth turned up, revealing a bright smile. "Exchanging names makes us friends, and friends should help each other, shouldn't they?" It was noon, the hottest time of the day. Rinso stood with his back to the sun, the scattered sunlight even making him appear dazzling. He maximized his excellent looks, and his infectious smile made Onma Yakumo turn her head slightly, her cheeks flushed. I understand. Then, I'm going home first. I'll come find you tomorrow." Onma Yakumo picked up her sketchbook and left in a hurry. Rinso didn't stop her, smiling as he said, "Just come find me at the training ground tomorrow morning. If you can't find me, just ask someone my name. I should have some recognition." "Got it." Onma Yakumo's voice came from afar. Rinso watched her leave, his eyes devoid of the joy of making a new friend, filled instead with a longing for her powerful talent. He withdrew his gaze and activated Flying Thunder God, instantly teleporting back to his secret base. He then planned to continue practicing spiritualization technique, but before he could start, a series of images suddenly flashed through his mind. Rinso understood that this was another one of his shadow clones dispersing, transmitting its memories to him. And the volume of memories was considerable, so much so that even with his mental strength, he felt a sense of fatigue from the feedback. Carefully browsing through these memories, Rinso determined that this was the shadow clone he had dispatched some time ago, heading toward a Wagakure to execute an infiltration plan. In the memories, after the shadow clone was dispatched, it first used Flying Thunder God to teleport to the closest coordinates to a Wagakure, and then began to travel on foot. During this period, it encountered mountain bandits twice, easily dispatching them with its swordsmanship. After arriving near a Wagakure, the shadow clone Rinso planned to replicate the method of infiltrating Hidden Cloud Village, encountering ninja, escorting a merchant caravan back to Iwagakure and showcasing his strength. That was the plan, and the shadow clone Rinso did exactly that. Even like in Hidden Cloud Village, the shadow clone Rinso immediately encountered a heavyweight ninja. The third, Tsuchikige's son, currently an elite jonin, and Kitsuchi, who possessed near Kaga-level expert strength during the Fourth Great Ninja War. He was also the father of Kuratsuchi, the fourth Tsuchikage. When he encountered him, the shadow clone Rinso displayed not swordsmanship, but rather an overflowing, massive amount of chakra. This was a choice the shadow clone Rinso had carefully considered. To infiltrate Hidden Cloud Village, his target was the fourth Reikage, so he chose to expose his powerful swordsmanship and impressive physical abilities. This would likely lead him to Killer Bee, and then subsequently to the fourth Reikage. As for Iwagakure, Rinso's goal was dust release. Exposing his swordsmanship talent would certainly lead to important training, but it was highly unlikely to get him close to Inoki. However, exposing his own massive chakra, this talent, would definitely catch Inoki's attention, and he might even take him as a disciple and personally instruct him. The subsequent outcome did not surprise Rinso. Rinso, who displayed his chakra talent, was taken back to Iwagakure by Kitsuchi for settlement, and was informed that he would be taken to see Inoki in the afternoon. Just now, at the same time he was communicating with Amayukumo, the shadow clone Rinso dispersed on its own, wanting his main body to go to Iwagakure himself. After all, he was going to meet Inoki, and perhaps with incredible luck, he might directly acquire dust release. So that's what happened. I thought something went wrong. Rinso breathed a sigh of relief. Quickly forming hand signs and creating a shadow clone, Rinso commanded, "You continue to practice spiritualization technique here." The shadow clone nodded. "Leave it to me." Rinso said no more, closed his eyes, and sensed the flying thunder god mark left by the Iwagakure shadow clone. As a large portion of his chakra disappeared, his figure instantly vanished from a secret base and appeared in Iwagakure, in a house about the same size as the independent residence in Hidden Cloud Village. Rinso appeared in the bathroom, looking in the mirror. In the mirror, his originally handsome and approachable boyish face now had ugly red scars, almost covering his entire face. Just like his fake identity, Yun Sheng, in Hidden Cloud Village. When he infiltrated Iwagakure, he naturally used a fake identity and a disguised face. Unlike the face of the Yun Sheng identity, this one was concealed with scars. His identity in Iwagakure was Ueo, and the scars on his face resembled burn marks. In the future, when infiltrating other villages, I'll have to think about what kind of scars to use to hide my appearance. Thinking this, Rinso walked out of the room and went to the living room to wait quietly. Time passed. After a while, knock, knock, knock. A knock on the door sounded, and Rinso went to open it. Outside the door, the burly Kitsuchi stroked Rinso's head with his large hand. "Ueo, let's go." Rinso responded with a taciturn hum, his gaze falling on the girl standing by Kitsuchi's leg. Her neat black short hair and delicate features made it difficult to associate her with Kitsuchi. But Rinso knew that the girl in front of him was most likely Kitsuchi's daughter, Kuratsuchi. "Why are you looking at me?" Kuratsuchi suddenly spoke. Rinso withdrew his gaze, intending to maintain his taciturn persona, and did not reply. "Ignoring me? How rude." Kuratsuchi pouted, a little displeased, and no longer paid attention to Rinso. And so, they continued in silence. Under Kitsuchi's guidance, Rinso successfully arrived at the Tsuchikage's office and met the pillar of Iwagakure, the Tsuchikage who possessed the ninja world's only bloodline limit, dust release. Inoki. Just like in the original work, the old man was very short, appearing to be about the same size as Rinso, or perhaps even shorter. Inoki was unaware of Rinso's thoughts. He got down from his office chair and observed Rinso. As one of the few Kaga-level experts in the ninja world, he was not weak in chakra perception. Therefore, he could clearly sense the massive chakra within Rinso. Is he from the Senju clan? Inoki speculated in his mind. He knew that the Senju clan had gone into hiding, some even leaving Konoha village to spread throughout the ninja world. So Rinso's massive chakra immediately made him think of the Senju bloodline. And looking at him now, it seemed his bloodline level was very high. Thinking this, Inoki's eyes lit up, and he directly said, "Ueo, are you willing to be this old man's disciple?" Chapter 60. The female demon Kuratsuchi, the imminent Shura field. Rinso, who usually maintained a taciturn persona, couldn't help but show his surprise. They had just met, right? To immediately take him as a disciple? Wasn't that a bit too hasty? What? Do you think this old man is too hasty in taking a disciple? Inoki stroked his beard, smiling. Rinso nodded honestly, genuinely curious. Even though his chakra talent was astonishing, Inoki should at least investigate him, ask about his background. To take him as a disciple right away was truly unexpected. At this, Inoki sighed slightly. Little Ueo, Iwagakure is currently facing a talent shortage. Of course, this old man must personally nurture a good sapling like you. Talent shortage? Rinso then remembered that during the Third Great Ninja War, Iwagakure had sent 10,000 ninja to besiege the Third Reikage. Although they succeeded in killing the Third Reikage, Iwagakure had clearly suffered heavy losses of young and strong individuals. If not for Inoki's powerful dust release, and the land of Earth itself being relatively desolate, it was likely that other villages would have already taken advantage of the situation and carved up the land of Earth. Given this, it was no longer strange that Inoki wanted to immediately take him as a disciple. So, Rinso no longer hesitated, immediately bowed, and called out, "Master." A good disciple. Having gained a beloved disciple, Inoki's face was wreathed in a smile like a chrysanthemum. As the Tsuchikage, he was naturally not foolish. He would also speculate about Rinso's origins in his heart. But like the Fourth Reikage, no village would send a child with such talent as a spy. Moreover, Iwagakure truly had nothing much to leak. Even if there were a spy, all they would leak would be when Inoki twisted his waist. Since that was the case, what did he have to hesitate about? Now was the time to quickly take him as a disciple and cultivate a bond. Even if Rinso's background was suspicious, that wouldn't prevent him from assimilating Rinso into Iwagakure. Grandpa, what about me? Kuratsuchi suddenly spoke up. Inoki, who was immersed in joy, was brought back to his senses by Kuratsuchi's words. He only remembered at this moment. A few days ago, he and his son, Kitsuchi, had discussed taking his granddaughter, Kuratsuchi, as a disciple and training her by his side. However, because Kitsuchi was temporarily assigned an escort mission, the matter of taking a disciple had been delayed until now. Just as Kitsuchi returned, he brought back the surprise of Rinso. So he had Kitsuchi bring Kuratsuchi along too, preparing to take both of them as disciples. Hearing Kuratsuchi's words now, Inoki casually said, Well, Kuratsuchi, you'll be Grandpa's fourth disciple then. Fourth? Kuratsuchi repeated, somewhat unable to accept it. Why did this guy named Ueo, who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, steal her identity as the third disciple, making her gain another senior brother? Damn it! Kuratsuchi glared fiercely at Rinso. Rinso glanced at her, choosing to ignore her. In his memory, Kuratsuchi shouldn't have any special abilities, and the lava release, Kekiai Jinkai, she mastered wasn't something he was particularly fond of. So there was no need to waste energy on Kuratsuchi. Annoying blank face. Kuratsuchi mumbled, her expression clearly resentful. Inoki smiled and said to Rinso, Ueo, although Kuratsuchi is this old man's granddaughter, she is also my fourth disciple, your junior sister. If she is disrespectful to you, this old man permits you to discipline her. Rinso nodded knowingly, his gaze towards Kuratsuchi unreadable. Under Rinso's gaze, Kuratsuchi shivered, shrinking back and saying, What are you looking at? I'm not afraid of you. Rinso ignored Kuratsuchi and said to Inoki, Master, I want to learn ninjutsu. Learn ninjutsu? No rush. You stay in a village for a few days first, get familiar with it, then I'll teach you, Inoki said. Hearing this, Rinso felt a slight disappointment in his heart, but he also understood. He could wait a few days. The ninjutsu Inoki mastered besides dust release also included those superb earth release ninjutsu that he greatly admired, especially the lightweight rock technique. That was a rare flying ability. Once he learned it, he could directly use the wood golem with Susanoo, attacking from the air. What was the difference from a nuclear bomb? The apprenticeship seemed not to be complicated, merely a verbal commitment. Inoki then let Rinso and Kuratsuchi leave. After leaving, he headed straight for his home. Little Kuratsuchi, however, blocked his path. Hey, stop. Little Kuratsuchi stood in front of Rinso, hands on her hips, full of momentum, but her head only reached Rinso's chest, making her look quite comical. Rinso suppressed the urge to laugh and said with a cold face, What is it? You go tell my grandpa that you want to be the fourth disciple. Let me be the third disciple. I'll be your senior sister, and I'll look out for you from now on. Kuratsuchi patted her chest, full of confidence. Rinso showed an expression of that's it, and walked directly around Kuratsuchi, leaving. Kuratsuchi stood stunned. Rinso's disregard immediately made her even more unhappy. She quickly caught up to Rinso, blocked him again, and said indignantly, Don't ignore me. Rinso ignored her, moved to the side, and tried to go around Kuratsuchi again. Kuratsuchi stretched out her arm, blocking Rinso's path. I told you not to ignore me. I'm going to beat you, believe it or not. I hit very hard. As if afraid Rinso wouldn't believe her, Kuratsuchi raised her fist and swung it forcefully. "'Tis troublesome," Rinso muttered softly, not expecting that Kuratsuchi, who would only be a bit hot-tempered in the future, was so difficult to deal with as a child, like a little brat. He originally didn't want to waste time, but Kuratsuchi provoked him again and again, so he didn't need to endure it. He no longer went around her, instead approaching Kuratsuchi head-on. Under Kuratsuchi's bewildered gaze, he directly tucked her under his armpit. "What are you going to do?" Kuratsuchi frantically dangled her legs. She and Rinso were currently on the street outside the Tsuchikage's office, and many people around were looking, making her feel somewhat embarrassed. Immediately, she struggled even more fiercely. Rinso didn't answer her, but simply knelt on one knee, pressing Kuratsuchi's abdomen onto his leg, and his free hand was raised high. Seeing Rinso's action, Kuratsuchi also understood what he was going to do, and her tone instantly became panicked. "No, don't, you can't do that. My dad has never hit me." Rinso maintained his poker face, but a slight curve appeared at the corner of his mouth. "No, I can do this. This is the authority Master Inoki gave me." As he spoke, his highly raised hand aimed at Kuratsuchi's bottom and fell sharply. Thwack! Through her pants, the sound produced was not crisp, but the humiliation it brought was not diminished in the slightest. Kuratsuchi, who had never suffered such great humiliation since she was little, immediately lost all color in her eyes and sat on the ground in a daze. Rinso clapped his hands, dusting them off, and looked down. "Next time you're impolite, I'll hit you like this again." Kuratsuchi's eyes welled up with tears. She stood up and ran away without looking back. "Wah, you meanie." Rinso's lips curved upwards, his mood greatly improved. Indeed, when dealing with little brats, one should strike hard. Otherwise, getting entangled would be troublesome. He really wasn't very good at handling girls. Fortunately, the three girls in Konoha all had relatively good personalities, which made him so at ease. Ino and the others are so much less trouble. Rinso sighed inwardly. At this moment, he didn't know. At the same time, because Ino had revealed that she had spent a night with him, the entire training ground was stirred up. Chapter 61. The Broken Tintin and Hinata. Yakumo Karama joins the battle, returning to his residence in Awagakure. After closing the doors and windows tightly, Rinso sensed his surroundings, confirmed no one was watching, then formed hand seals and created a shadow clone. "You appear here for Inoki and the others to see. I'll return to Konoha first. When there's an opportunity to meet Inoki, call me. I'll come over then to see if I can drop dust release. Other than that, you handle everything else yourself. After all, we share the same mind." Rinso instructed his shadow clone. The shadow clone Rinso nodded, stroked his chin, and said understood. Rinso hummed softly, and then a portion of his chakra instantly vanished from his body. He himself appeared in his secret base in Konoha village. Looking around, the original shadow clone was gone. What met his eyes was a group of shadow clones he had dispatched at noon to practice darkness technique, 5-element seal, and spiritualization technique. These shadow clones shared his diligent nature, working tirelessly without pause, and all seemed to have made some progress. With a thought, Rinso made all the shadow clones dissipate. A flood of memories instantly poured into his mind, and waves of fatigue spread through his body. All of this was on top of the exhaustion from absorbing the memories of the former Awagakure shadow clone at noon. With the added fatigue, Rinso felt quite tired. Glancing at the twilight sky, Rinso muttered to himself, "I should rest." Rubbing his throbbing temples, Rinso walked through the orchard and returned home. As dusk deepened, his parents were already preparing dinner at home. Seeing Rinso return unusually early, they asked in surprise, "Did your training finish so early today?" Rinso nodded and sat on the sofa. "Yeah, I have a bit of a headache." Seeing her son act like a little adult, Mariki Hanako smiled. "Then let's eat early tonight and go to bed early." Rinso agreed. Just then, knock knock knock. A knock sounded at the door. Rinso walked over to open it. Outside, Ino, dressed in casual clothes and not a drop of sweat on her, grinned and said, "Rinso, I'm here." "Huh? Why are you here?" Rinso was a bit confused. Ino opened her mouth. "My house isn't so?" Rinso understood, then stepped aside to let Ino in. Although he wondered why the Konoha construction team was so slow, there was no need to question Ino. It was just one more night, and it didn't affect anything. Stepping into Rinso's house, a hint of glee flashed in Ino's eyes as she cheerfully walked in and greeted Rinso's parents. "Hello, Uncle Jinichi. Hello, Aunt Hanako." Mariki Jinichi nodded, forcing a smile. Mariki Hanako showed an affectionate expression. "Little Ino is here? Perfect. Join us for dinner." Thank you, Aunt Hanako." Ino was very cheerful. Seeing this, Rinso shrugged and sat back on the sofa to rest. The next day, secret base. Rinso formed hand seals and created several shadow clones. The three of you will study darkness technique here. The three of you will study 5-element seal here. You go to Konoha Hospital to learn medical knowledge. You stay here to strengthen your spiritual perception. That's all. After giving his commands to the shadow clones, Rinso left the secret base with satisfaction and returned home. In the living room, Rinso teleported back and saw Ino, who had finished washing up, sitting on the sofa, waiting for his return. Finished washing up? Then let's go to the training ground, Rinso said with a hint of helplessness. Ino twirled her fingers, a little embarrassed. I didn't mean to delay you. I usually wake up at this time at home. Rinso understood this point and knew that he and Hinata were usually the earliest to arrive. He couldn't impose his own schedule on Ino. So, he didn't blame her, saying gently, I didn't mean to blame you. Let's just go together. Really? Ino giggled happily. Let's go. I'll take you there using Flying Thunder God, Rinso said. Saying that, he took Ino's hand and used Flying Thunder God to travel. After a few instantaneous movements, they arrived at the training ground. At the training ground now, Rinso scanned the area, and most people had already arrived, especially Hinata, who was sitting alone on a bench, head down, swinging her legs, looking very disappointed, as if she had waited a long time for someone who hadn't shown up. A strange sense of guilt arose in Rinso's heart. He walked over and patted Hinata's shoulder. Hinata. Hinata let out a cute whimper, looked up, and seeing it was Rinso, her expression instantly changed from dejected to joyful. Rinso-kun. Hinata stood up, happily tugging at Rinso's sleeve. Rinso-kun. Tintin was drawn over and immediately noticed Rinso. Tintin walked over, and unlike Hinata's pure joy, while she was happy, she also noticed something unusual. Rinso-kun, why did you come with Ino? Tintin focused on the key point, narrowing her eyes slightly. Well, that's because on the way, Rinso was about to casually brush it off, but Ino suddenly spoke up. Because we slept together last night, and because I woke up very late, I delayed Rinso, which is why he's so late. Sorry, Ino said, but her lips couldn't help but curve upwards, her face full of triumph. Hearing this, Tintin and Hinata were struck by lightning, their faces instantly turning ashen. Rinso-kun, Ino said yesterday that she also slept with you the night before last. Is that true too? Hinata asked cautiously, her expression tense, as if she didn't want to hear the obvious answer. Rinso naturally wouldn't deny it, nodding yes. Tintin and Hinata's expressions became even more ashen, subtly crumbling. Rinso quickly added, because Ino's house was destroyed and is being repaired, she's staying at my place. Staying? Tintin's eyes instantly regained their sparkle. Hinata also breathed a sigh of relief, whispering, good thing. For them, as long as Rinso hadn't actively invited Ino or something, and there was a reason for it, they could accept it. It's just that neither of them thought carefully or perhaps didn't want to think carefully. Regardless of the reason, Rinso and Ino had indeed slept in the same bed for 2 nights. Rinso and I. Ino opened her mouth. Ino. Seeing Ino about to say something else, Rinso felt a headache coming on and quickly cut her off. Oh, I won't say anything then. Ino feigned obedience, her heart brimming with joy. In the great battle to win Rinso, she had already taken the lead. Ino's lips curved upwards, basking in the joy of victory. However, just then, a girl's voice suddenly sounded behind her. Excuse me, where is Mariki Rinso? Onma Yakumo patted Ino's back. Ino pointed to the back in front of her without thinking. Thank you. Onma Yakumo thanked her. And Rinso, upon hearing Onma Yakumo's voice, felt cold sweat trickle down his forehead. Oh no. Chapter 62 Naruto. Sakura Haruno drops. Chakra control talent. Good morning, Rinso-kun. Onma Yakumo stood before Rinso, a faint smile on her face. Feeling 3 pairs of eyes on him, Rinso feigned calmness and said, good morning, Yakumo. Yakumo, so intimate. When did you meet? The 3 girls' expressions showed their varied thoughts. Tintin forced a smile and squeezed in front of Rinso, intentionally or unintentionally separating Rinso and Onma Yakumo. Rinso-kun, when did you meet a new friend? Rinso's mind raced, wondering how to answer, but Onma Yakumo had already spoken. It was yesterday. Rinso-kun helped me and even invited me to train together. He's a very good friend, Onma Yakumo said with a gentle smile. Yesterday? Tintin, Ino, and Hinata immediately recalled Rinso, saying he had something to do yesterday and wouldn't be coming to train. So, what he had to do was go make friends with a new girl. Rinso-kun, this isn't good. It will affect your cultivation, Hinata said, pursing her lips and gently tugging at Rinso's sleeve. Rinso-kun, if you keep this up, I'll tell Aunt Hanako. Tintin helplessly used a completely unthreatening tactic. She didn't even know what Rinso had done wrong. What the heck, you philanderer? Ino pouted, completely losing her earlier smugness. What kind of winner? She was clearly ambushed. Beside them, Onma Yakumo seemed to have discovered something interesting, and the smile at the corner of her mouth became more pronounced. She stepped forward, a hint of unease naturally appearing on her face. She took Rinso's hand and whispered, "Rinso-kun, this is my first time training outside. Can you guide me?" Stare. The three girls' gazes immediately shifted to the hand Onma Yakumo was holding. Damn it. Why did she hold his hand so naturally? Why didn't Rinso refuse? The girls glared at Rinso. Oh, that. Of course, I can guide you. Tenten and the others can do it. Tenten, I'll leave Yakumo to you. Please help her integrate with everyone. With that, Rinso seemed to have discovered something important and quickly pulled away. He walked over to Naruto, who was eating dango nearby. Naruto, look at you. You're severely malnourished. You should eat more proper meals, not snacks like dango. I'm confiscating this skewer. Naruto, who was about to happily enjoy his dango. Big brother Rinso, I'll give you money. Can you buy another one? Naruto asked, his head drooping. Hearing this, Rinso immediately shook his head. Forget it. This is a one-time thing. Eat more main meals in the future, understand? Got it. Hearing that he wouldn't lose his dango, Naruto immediately perked up. Rinso cautiously glanced back at Tenten and the others. Seeing that they weren't coming for him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Damn it. Could he take back his thoughts about Iwagakure now? They're all just kids. Why do they understand so much? This damn Hokage world. I'm telling you, don't get too close to Rinso. He's not a very good guy, Tenten said to Onma Yakumo against her true feelings. Ino chimed in. Yeah, girls should play with girls. Don't go near him. Just play with us. Hinata also bravely spoke up once. Yes. Rinso-kun is a very bad person. He helps me train in nintai jutsu. He treats me to meals and lets me eat as much as I want, not caring what others think. No, Rinso-kun is very strict, and Hinata thought hard and said, Rinso-kun sweats a lot after training, and he won't even let me take his clothes to wash. Onma Yakumo. She narrowed her eyes slightly, understanding a bit more. So, she immediately smiled and said, It seems you all have a very good relationship with Rinso-kun. It looks like I'll have to work hard to quickly integrate with everyone too. Tenten, Ino, Hinata, the three girls exchanged glances. Oh no, she's a real competitor. Afternoon. The day's training quickly ended. The newly joined Onma Yakumo didn't cause any dissatisfaction. Or did she? In any case, Onma Yakumo integrated well. Everyone was very accommodating to this frail girl who needed to rest for a long time after a short period of exercise. Onma Yakumo did ask Rinso during the day if there was any method that could help her. Rinso brushed her off with train for a few days first. He couldn't tell Onma Yakumo that he was just making empty promises, that he didn't actually have any good methods. Of course, he didn't have good methods now, but that didn't mean he wouldn't in the future. Once his nintai jutsu was completed, it would definitely be useful for improving Onma Yakumo's physical fitness. As for the soul aspect, once he learned the spiritualization technique and then used his ninjutsu development talent to research and create a useful soul secret technique for Onma Yakumo, it wasn't impossible. Speaking of which, all day, he kept thinking about Onma Yakumo dropping items. But unexpectedly, throughout the day, he only picked up something during a brief conversation with Sakura. Sakura Hirano dropped chakra control talent. Yes/no to pick up. This was the talent that Sakura would rely on most in the future to become a medical ninja and a Kaga-level expert. Rinso had never intentionally picked up this talent from Sakura, but now that it dropped naturally, he was naturally delighted. After all, chakra control talent is always useful. Learning medical ninjutsu, learning ordinary ninjutsu, and even when developing ninjutsu, this talent can play a significant role. Rinso even thought about whether to send out a few shadow clones to learn medical ninjutsu. Whether he used it himself or not, there would always be times when the people around him needed it. At that time, only knowing mystical palm technique wouldn't be enough. At the very least, if he was poisoned, he wouldn't have a solution, so the delicate illness extraction technique had to be learned. All in all, if he didn't have the conditions before, then so be it. Now that he had this talent, he wouldn't be lazy. While Rinso was lost in thought, Onma Yakumo walked up to him. Rinso-kun, I'm very satisfied with today's training. I'll be leaving now, Onma Yakumo said softly. As Rinso came back to his senses, she stepped forward and hugged him. The hug was fleeting, merely expressing gratitude. Onma Yakumo then left directly. Rinso rubbed his head, feeling a bit confused. Expressing thanks with a simple thank you would have been enough? Why hug him? Soon he got his answer. Rinso-kun, thank you for letting me train with you, Tenten said, looking at Rinso and opening her arms. Rinso smiled helplessly and gave her a hug. Tenten immediately showed a satisfied expression. Rinso-kun. Hinata walked over shyly, not knowing what to say, just blushing profusely. Rinso didn't want Hinata to make things difficult for herself, so he proactively hugged her. Hinata, see you tomorrow. Rinso let go. Thud. Hinata fell to the ground, steam rising from her head. Rinso, oh, I'll take Hinata home, Tintin said, picking up Hinata and volunteering. Then, she looked at Ino, who was the last one who hadn't hugged Rinso. She understood that if Rinso took Hinata home now, Ino's hug would be lost. For the sake of her sister, she would make a sacrifice. Thank you. Ino looked over, expressing her gratitude. Then, facing Rinso, she opened her arms. Chapter 63. Create your own ninjutsu, Earth Release. Mountain Giant Technique. The hug was fleeting. Ino shook her head happily. Beside them, Naruto came over. Big brother Rinso. Naruto opened his arms. Rinso, helpless, also gave him a hug. If it were anyone else, he would think they were deliberately teasing him. But if it was Naruto, oh, why bother with an idiot? Bye-bye, big brother Rinso. Naruto skipped away. Bye-bye. After Naruto left, only Ino and Rinso remained in the training ground. Rinso nodded to Ino and was about to leave. Seeing this, Ino quickly grabbed Rinso, pointing her finger and asking, "Can I stay at your house again tonight?" Rinso turned his head, a puzzled expression on his face. When I left the training ground at noon today to see Grandma Miho, I passed by your house and saw that it had already been repaired. Didn't you know, Ino? Ino's body stiffened, her expression flustered. Ah, that. Has it really been fixed? I ate lunch at the flower shop at noon, so I didn't know. Yes, I didn't know it was fixed. Oh, Rinso showed an expression that saw through everything, but chose not to expose her, merely saying, "Now you know, Ino. You can go back to your own house. That way you won't have to squeeze onto one bed with me." Ino forced a smile. That's right. In reality, she was furiously complaining in her heart. When I get back, I'm going to complain to the construction team. It must have been such a perfunctory repair for it to be done so quickly. Returning home from the training ground, it was already dark. Dinner was on the dining room table, the specially reserved dishes covered with lids. Rinso opened them to find a hearty portion of curry pork cutlet rice and a bowl of turnip soup. Yes, the size of a wash basin. After all, he was only 4 years old, and it was a crucial time for his growth. Stunted development would be disastrous. After dinner, Rinso washed up but did not return to his room. He walked out of his house, through the orchard, and arrived at his secret base. Under the moonlight, his shadow clones were still diligently practicing ninjutsu. Seeing this, Rinso's thoughts stirred, and he dispelled all the shadow clones here. Memories and fatigue returned together. The fatigue was instantly dispelled, leaving behind a vast amount of memories related to ninjutsu. Through these memories, Rinso learned that of the 3 ninjutsu he had instructed his shadow clones to practice, the darkness technique had been completely mastered in approximately a day and a half since he obtained it yesterday evening. Additionally, the 5-element seal had reached about half its learning progress, half the rate of the darkness technique. This did not surprise Rinso. After all, the darkness technique benefited from the Mangekyo Sharingan, Kurenai Yui's Jinjutsu talent, Ino's In-Release talent, and his own and Kakashi's Ninjutsu talent. With these talents combined, even an A-rank Jinjutsu would be excessively simple. As for the 5-element seal, with the same A-rank learning difficulty, it only reached half its progress in a day and a half. Regarding the spiritualization technique, after a day and a half of learning, his soul perception had become more refined and proficient. He estimated that he would soon be able to begin the second step, which involves learning chakra flow and hand seals. The progress is good. Next, it's time to try creating a few ninjutsu myself, Rinso muttered. Creating ninjutsu was an idea Rinso had conceived long ago. It was an idea he had since gaining Orochimaru's ninjutsu development talent. However, due to various reasons, it had been put on hold. Now, he had essentially learned everything he needed to. He had also completely mastered the nature transformation and form transformation of the 5 basic chakras. He now had the full capability to develop a completely new ninjutsu according to his own ideas. Of course, Rinso did not intend to do that. He still had no experience in creating ninjutsu, so there was no need to start with something so difficult. He planned to first draw inspiration from the ninjutsu he already knew, create similar ninjutsu, and accumulate experience. And the ninjutsu he intended to draw inspiration from was the wood release, wood golem technique, which was now considered one of his trump cards, a powerful ninjutsu with power comparable to Susanoo. Rinso's idea was to use the wood golem technique as a reference to create an earth release Gundam ninjutsu. Nothing more. Among the 5 elemental chakras, earth is the only attribute that can condense into a solid. This was the most basic condition for creating a Gundam ninjutsu. Additionally, wood release itself is a combination of earth and water chakras. Therefore, he could draw a lot of inspiration from some of the chakra circulation routes of the wood golem technique. This undoubtedly greatly reduced the difficulty of his ninjutsu development. Finally, choosing Earth Release. Rinso also wanted to create a trump card for his alias. He couldn't have his alias encounter danger in the future and die, because he was afraid of exposure and dared not use his main body's ninjutsu. Right? Creating a trump card ninjutsu for his alias was considering this point. An Earth Release Gundam ninjutsu would be very suitable for his alias. He had a large amount of chakra, so he wouldn't be unable to sustain the ninjutsu's consumption, and Earth Release was very compatible with the tone of a Wagakure. It could be said that Rinso's desire to create an Earth Release Gundam ninjutsu was truly a matter of timing, geographical advantage, and human harmony. In contrast, for his alias in Hidden Cloud Village, Rinso currently had no ideas and could only muddle through for now. Thinking this, Rinso's figure flickered, appearing outside Konoha Village, a spot marked by a flying Thunder God seal. The night was deep. He stood on a hillside, forming hand seals and creating several shadow clones. Because of their shared thoughts, the shadow clones understood what to do as soon as they appeared. They all began to cooperate in studying the wood golem technique. To develop an Earth Release Gundam ninjutsu, the first step was to thoroughly analyze the chakra flow routes of the wood golem technique. They needed to study where the wood golem technique took shape and where it formed a human figure. This was not difficult with Orochimaru's ninjutsu development talent. Relying on his talent, intuition alone allowed Rinso to quickly identify the most suitable chakra route. Then, with Sakura's chakra control talent, Rinso could directly test the correctness of these routes within his body without harming himself. It could be said that in this ninjutsu creation, Orochimaru and Sakura could also share the credit for joint creation. Thus, the creation of a ninjutsu went from morning to night. Rinso tirelessly improved the details of a ninjutsu or introduced new concepts until the sun rose. Only then did Rinso recall the shadow clones who had been creating ninjutsu all night with him. A strong sense of fatigue and dizziness made him sway a few times, feeling a bit unsteady. But Rinso's lips curved into a smile, his eyes incredibly bright. After an entire night, with the efforts of numerous shadow clones and the wood golem technique as a reference, a new Gundam ninjutsu had been created by him. Standing on the hillside, Rinso lowered his head slightly, slowly forming hand seals. Then, chakra from within his body surged into the ground through his feet. Rumble. The earth trembled, and cracks appeared. Debris, soil, trees, everything on the ground began to condense. Soon, a massive giant, resembling a standing stone monkey, appeared, exuding a terrifying aura. Rinso looked at it and named this ninjutsu Earth Release, Mountain Giant Technique. Chapter 64. 1 week later, the harvest. Looking at the mountain giant he had created, Rinso felt a sense of accomplishment well up within him, his heart filled with satisfaction. He pushed off with his legs, leaping from the hillside to the top of the mountain giant's head. The mountain giant was about 10 meters tall, similar to a complete Susanoo. However, compared to a complete Susanoo and the wood release golem that was its equivalent, it was still far inferior. Fortunately, this 10-meter height was intentionally controlled by Rinso. It wasn't that he couldn't raise the mountain giant to 100 meters. He was merely testing whether the ninjutsu could be performed, so he didn't invest too much chakra. Besides, a 10-meter mountain giant was manageable. A 100-meter mountain giant would undoubtedly cause a huge commotion, which was unnecessary. Standing on top of the mountain giant's head, he felt the wind for a while. Rinso stopped the chakra supply, and the mountain giant instantly dispersed, filling the gaps in the earth. Afterward, he fused wood-release chakra and injected it into the earth, causing the buried flowers, plants, and trees to sprout one by one. After this series of actions, the area returned to its original state, showing no signs that a large-scale ninjutsu had been used there. To control wood-release chakra so precisely, it seems I have great potential to be a master builder. After a brief sigh of emotion, Rinso activated Flying Thunder God and returned home. Since it was already light, he decided not to sleep and went directly to the training ground. Of course, he also created a shadow clone and left it at the secret base to study and practice ninjutsu. Perhaps being a workaholic was just his destiny. Rinso-kun, here you go. This is food I made myself to replenish your energy. Onma Yakumo took out a lunchbox and handed it to Rinso with a smile. Rinso, who had been training all morning, had broken a sweat, but his body still had plenty of stored energy. However, he naturally wouldn't refuse Onma Yakumo's kindness. He took the breakfast and said with a smile, "Thank you, Yakumo. I'll give you the method to solve your weak body caused by your overly strong soul in a couple of days." Onma Yakumo shook her head and smiled. Rinso-kun, You don't actually have a solution, do you? Rinso opened his mouth, about to say something. No need to say anything, Rinso-kun. Actually, what you said back then was just to get me to train with you, right? Although I don't know why you want to do that. I'm very happy. A gentle smile appeared on Anma Yakumo's pale face. She looked at the people in the training ground and whispered, "Everyone here is so kind. Because of you, I've made so many friends. So, even if you don't have a solution, I won't stop coming here." Rinso didn't speak. After all, a week had passed since Anma Yakumo joined them. He had been constantly putting off Anma Yakumo with phrases like "in a couple of days" and "wait a bit." So, it was normal for Anma Yakumo not to believe him. But this time, he was telling the truth. Noon. Everyone at the training ground went home for lunch and a nap. Today, Rinso didn't immediately go to visit Senjimiho, but instead went to the secret base behind his orchard. In this not-so-large small place, over a dozen shadow clones were arguing with each other. "We should use my method to share the soul pressure through a soul connection. Yours is just treating the symptoms, not the root cause. We should follow my method and have Yakumo separate her soul power from her body to lessen the burden." No, none of your methods are right. Follow mine." Rinso stood in the distance, watching his shadow clones argue fiercely, feeling a bit helpless. Because he, as the main body, hadn't decided on a method to solve Anma Yakumo's problem, these shadow clones, after being split off, might have developed their own methods due to changes in their thinking. Rinso didn't know whether to stop them. After all, while arguing like this slowed down progress, it could lead to the most suitable solution. Forget it, there's no rush anyway. Rinso thought for a moment and decided to let his shadow clones argue. He then sat cross-legged on the ground, quickly formed hand seals, and his soul left his body. The ethereal soul floated out of his body. The soul form Rinso glanced at his body, then drifted freely in the air. He had already mastered the spiritualization technique, and now only needed time to improve his proficiency. Moreover, he couldn't use shadow clones for this, so he had to do it himself. After training for a while, Rinso's soul returned to his body. He glanced at the still arguing shadow clones, and with a thought, they all dispersed. Then, a flood of memories appeared in his mind. The ideas generated from the clash of thoughts constantly emerged in his mind. Rinso felt that each one was worth trying. So, I'll find time to ask Yakumo for her thoughts, and then come up with a targeted solution. After all, she's already given me her reward, so I should at least respect her wishes. His thoughts gradually drifted back, and Rinso remembered a training session a few days ago. He was training Anma Yakumo physically, and Anma Yakumo directly dropped her Genjutsu talent. Although it wasn't a bloodline limit or soul strength, which disappointed Rinso a bit, it was still a very good drop. After fusing it, the boost it provided was comparable to Yuhi's Genjutsu talent. It was clear that even without strong soul power and a bloodline limit, Anma Yakumo could at least become a Genjutsu master no less inferior to Yuhi. During this past week, besides Anma Yakumo, Rinso had also picked up some drops from other people. However, most of them didn't offer him much improvement. For example, Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke dropped Great Fireball Jutsu. Pick up Y/N. After picking it up, the improvement it brought was negligible. It was laughable that Sasuke still wanted to defeat him with this ninjutsu, but he couldn't even force out Rinso's sword. Rinso kicked him in the back of the knee, making him kneel on the ground, and he stayed home in self-isolation for 3 full days before returning to the training ground. Another example was Ino's finger dexterity. It didn't greatly improve his hand seals. However, when he brought the flowers Ino gave him home to arrange them, his flower arranging speed increased significantly, which was quite abstract. Of course, since most were useless, it meant there were still some that were useful to him. For example, Narashikaka dropped Mental Acuity. Pick up Y/N. After fusing it, it brought positive benefits in various aspects. Another example was Uchiha Sure Sway dropped Shuriken Manipulation Technique. Pick up Y/N. After fusing it, he filled another small weakness, although he might not use it in actual combat. But it was said that in the upcoming Konoha Children's Ninja Tournament, Shuriken throwing could be a bonus item, which he could use. And for example, Akimichi Choji dropped Digestive Ability. Pick up Y/N. After fusing it, his already astonishing digestive ability doubled his food intake, allowing his body to absorb even more nutrients. To put it more directly, during one barbecue dinner, his appetite surpassed that of Hinata, who was eating without restraint. Chapter 65 Samwee's Burden, the Bound Black Soil. Secret Base. Rinso pinched his fingers, controlling would release chakra, and from the ground, vines grew, intertwining and rotating, finally forming the shape of a reclining chair. Comfortably lying down, Rinso looked at the sky. Without industrial pollution, the sky revealed the light emitted by distant stars, making it exceptionally beautiful. After pushing himself for so long, he finally seemed to have the leisure to rest. He had learned the Flying Thunder God technique. He had learned the 5 Natures ninjutsu. He had learned the Darkness technique. He had the Mangekyo Sharingan, and Susanoo and the 2 great ocular ninjutsu had awakened. He had learned the Wood Golem technique and had even used it to develop the Earth Release, Mountain Giant technique. Finally, he had also learned the 5-element seal during this past week. One could say, ninjutsu, taijutsu, jinjutsu, sealing technique, giant ninjutsu, ocular ninjutsu, life-saving ninjutsu. Everything he should learn and shouldn't learn, he had learned. Other ninjutsu like combination ninjutsu, dust release, and lightning release chakra mode. While he desired them, he was no longer in such a hurry. Wait, lightning release chakra mode. It seems my shadow clones in Hidden Cloud Village haven't dispersed yet. I wonder how things are going there. Rinso sat up, pondered for a moment, and then made a decision. I'll recall all my shadow clones and unify their memories. Once the decision was made, Rinso didn't rashly execute it immediately. If he dispelled the shadow clones, what if they were in the middle of a conversation with someone? What if they were exposed? Therefore, out of caution, Rinso directly activated Flying Thunder God, not hesitating to consume chakra for multiple ultra-long distance instantaneous movements, just to confirm the situation. And this confirmation indeed made Rinso feel a little fortunate, because his shadow clone in Hidden Cloud Village was currently bidding farewell to Samui on the street. Lin Sheng's pseudonym. See you tomorrow then. I'll bring my younger brother. Please give him a good beating. Samui smiled slightly, her eyes filled with gratitude. Don't worry, just leave it to me. Rinso nodded coolly. All right, thank you. Samui rubbed her shoulders, which were sore from carrying 2 burdens for a long time, and watched Rinso leave. Stealing a glance, Rinso instinctively swallowed. Samui's lips curled into a slight smile. She leaned down, and her 2 heavy burdens trembled, revealing a snowy white cleavage. What's wrong, Lin Sheng's pseudonym? Do you have something else to say? Rinso's cheeks flushed slightly, but his expression remained unchanged. Nothing. I'll be going now. Saying that, he turned and quickly walked away. Watching Rinso's retreating figure, Samui lightly chuckled, her finger resting on her lips. It's the first time I've seen little Lin Sheng's pseudonym shy. How cute. At the Hidden Cloud Village residence, inside the room. Useless. Rinso lectured his shadow clone. What's there to look at? You've been looked down upon. The shadow clone Rinso looked speechless. I am you, and you are me. Whatever reaction I have, you must have the same reaction. Why are you pretending? You're being too dishonest. Ahem, don't worry about that. Rinso didn't dare to refute. After all, while he was waiting in the shadows for his shadow clone to finish talking, his gaze was mostly fixed on those 2 snowy white objects. By the way, what did Samui mean by give his younger brother a beating? What happened? Rinso asked curiously. The shadow clone Rinso gave his main body a strange look and said, You can check it yourself. Saying that, the shadow clone Rinso directly dispersed. Soon, memories and a sense of fatigue flooded in simultaneously. Rinso sorted out the whole story. It turned out that Samui's younger brother, Atsui, was too reckless and acted without thinking. So, Samui wanted him, with his steady and cool personality, to spar with Atsui, to give Atsui a setback, and to curb Atsui's personality. Such a small matter. After realizing it wasn't a big deal, Rinso continued to browse his memories. He then learned that after he left, the shadow clone had been following Samui every day during this period. During this time, he had also met Killer Bee a few times with Samui and learned some swordsmanship. However, it was clear that Killer Bee's swordsmanship was not superior to his, so the instruction was largely useless. Therefore, his swordsmanship guidance was cancelled, and instead, Samui took him to familiarize himself with Hidden Cloud Village and make friends. Thus, Samui introduced him to her younger brother Atsui, which led to the request for help in giving him a beating. After reviewing the memories, Rinso couldn't help but exclaim, Indeed, a large village like Hidden Cloud Village won't easily trust me. To gain their trust, I'll probably have to wait until I establish bonds within the village. It seems I'll have to find an opportunity to reveal other talents later to make Hidden Cloud Village value me more. With some ideas in mind, Rinso created a new shadow clone, gave some simple instructions, and then left. This time, he arrived at a Wagakure. This time, it was not so simple either. He saw his shadow clone in a Wagakure sitting on the living room sofa, with freshly cooked dishes on a coffee table in front of him, emitting an enticing aroma. You hateful guy, untie me quickly. Grandfather Inoki won't let you off. Kuratsuchi was currently tied with hemp rope, her body arched backward, her hands and feet bound together, in a very humiliating position. What was even more astonishing was that the shadow clone Rinso was still holding the freshly cooked dishes and constantly fanning the aroma towards Kuratsuchi's nose. Damn it, you've tied me up since noon. Do you think I'll be tormented like this just because I haven't eaten? You're dreaming. Kuratsuchi was incredibly stubborn, her tone very resolute. Of course, if her gaze didn't follow the rice bowl in Rinso's hand as it moved, it would be more convincing. Grr. Kuratsuchi's stomach rumbled. Rinso looked over, and after a moment of silence said, "Apologize to me, and I'll let you eat." Apologize? No, I'm not wrong. Kuratsuchi's cheeks were as red as apples, and she struggled violently. Rinso was helpless and said, "You're still not wrong? You brought your 2 followers and immediately launched a sneak attack. If I hadn't reacted quickly, you would have succeeded. I didn't mean to hurt you. You hit but I just wanted to control you and then hit you back." Kuratsuchi argued, her body already showing red marks from struggling against the hemp rope. Hearing Kuratsuchi's simple and unadorned reason, Rinso rubbed his forehead. "What am I even arguing with you about?" Muttering to himself, Rinso suddenly approached Kuratsuchi. What are you going to do?" Kuratsuchi was startled, and seeing that Rinso seemed to be about to hug her, she struggled even more desperately. However, Rinso didn't do anything to her. He simply reached his hands behind her and untied the ropes binding her hands and feet. Regained freedom? Realizing this, Kuratsuchi was a little stunned. She looked at Rinso and asked softly, "Why aren't you insisting on me apologizing anymore?" Rinso gave her a speechless look. "If I kept insisting, would you apologize?" "No." "Then there you go. Hurry up and eat, and then leave after you're done. I have things to do." Glancing at the small gap in his bedroom door and sensing the aura coming from inside, the shadow clone Rinso urged. I know." Kuratsuchi pouted, then eagerly picked up the rice bowl, eating the rice and dishes Rinso had served, eating with great satisfaction. 5 ants. Chapter 66 Shadow Clone Synchronizes Memories. Konoha's #1 Ninja Doctor. "Here you go." Rinso pulled out a tissue and handed it to Kuratsuchi, who was eating messily and had grease all over her mouth. Gulp. Kuratsuchi chewed the food in her mouth, muttering indistinctly, "I'll get the tissue myself. I don't need your help." With that, she bypassed Rinso and pulled out another tissue herself. Rinso, leaning back on the sofa, Rinso ignored Kuratsuchi and quietly watched her eat all the food he had made, a full plate of stew and 5 bowls of rice. Not a single bite was left. So satisfying. Kuratsuchi's belly was full, and she lay comfortably on the sofa, a look of contentment on her face. It wasn't until Rinso's gaze on her became increasingly obvious that she realized she wasn't in her own home. Not only was she not in her own home, but she was in the home of the scoundrel who had spanked her. Kuratsuchi belatedly looked at Rinso and gritted her teeth. "You're very proud, aren't you, for making my stomach big?" "What do you mean I made your stomach big? You ate too much, okay? I haven't eaten anything yet, and you ate it all." He couldn't hold back. His emotions were completely out of control. What silent and reserved persona? Forget it. He had thought that by taking the initiative to show kindness and let Kuratsuchi eat her fill, they wouldn't act as if nothing had happened, but at least Kuratsuchi wouldn't bother him anymore. But looking at it now, this kid wasn't grateful at all. Kuratsuchi glanced at the empty serving plates and rice cooker on the coffee table and was speechless. Her face flushed red, and she slowly stood up and walked to the door. I'll still come back to bother you. We're not done," Kuratsuchi threatened. Then, like a pregnant woman, she held her waist and slowly shuffled away. Damn it, Rinso cursed irritably, feeling that he couldn't be merciful to Kuratsuchi anymore. He made up his mind that if Kuratsuchi came to bother him again tomorrow, he would hit her with a heavy punch. Standing up, he closed and locked the doors and windows, and after confirming no one was watching him with his sensory abilities, the shadow clone Rinso walked into his bedroom and saw his main body sitting on the bed, reading the newspaper from the bedside. Puffed. The shadow clone dispersed. Rinso absorbed the memories, his lips twitching in exasperation. I'm inexplicably targeted by Kuratsuchi? How can the future Tsuchikage, who is somewhat responsible, be so unreasonable when she was a child? Is it because she hasn't experienced Deidara blowing up houses yet, so her personality hasn't changed? Rinso shook his head, too lazy to think about it. After synchronizing his memories, he created another shadow clone. When Kuratsuchi bothers me again, hit her with a heavy punch. Rinso said to the shadow clone, "Don't worry, your thoughts are my thoughts. I'll give her an unforgettable experience." The shadow clone Rinso nodded seriously. With the task completed, Rinso used the Flying Thunder God technique to return to Konoha village. In the secret base, sensing the amount of chakra in his body, Rinso suddenly remembered. Besides the shadow clones in Hidden Cloud Village in Iwagakure, he also had a shadow clone that had been studying at Konoha Hospital these past few days, and he hadn't synchronized its memories yet. So, Rinso used Flying Thunder God again and went to Konoha Hospital. In 1 week, the shadow clone of mine should have learned a lot, right? Rinso the medical ninja. Hurry, there's a patient with poisoning and internal bleeding. Outside the operating room, a nurse called out to the shadow clone Rinso, who was looking at a human anatomy chart. Understood. The shadow clone Rinso entered the operating room, had the nurse help him put on a sterile gown outside the operating table, and then took the lead surgeon's position, beginning to operate on the patient on the operating table. This was not a regular knife, but a chakra scalpel, with chakra condensed in both hands. Fluorescent green chakra covered his hands. Rinso focused intensely, and time seemed to slow down. He extended his hand, cut open the patient's skin, and then removed some necrotic tissue. Then, chakra flowed through his body, and another ninjutsu was used. Delicate illness extraction technique. Chakra flowed into the patient's body, penetrating everywhere, enveloping all the toxins that had seeped into various organs and flesh. Finally, it was carried out of the patient's body by the chakra and deposited into a pre-prepared container, where it dispersed into a liquid. A nurse beside him took out a towel to wipe Rinso's non-existent sweat, her eyes full of admiration. Rinso ignored her, took out a suture needle, and with precise and swift movements, stitched up the wound. Then, he placed his hand over it. Mystical palm technique. Life-giving chakra surged into the patient's body. Visibly, the patient's complexion gradually improved, and a hint of redness even appeared on his face. At this point, Rinso removed the medical mask from his face and said, "Go and discharge him." The operating room door opened. The patient, who had been on the verge of death and had purple lips just 10 minutes ago, had now regained his color and was lying on the hospital bed, even having the strength to open his eyes. The moment the hospital bed was wheeled out, the patient's wife and mother, who were sitting on the long bench outside the operating room, rushed forward. Tears of joy streamed down their faces. They truly hadn't expected that in such a situation, their husband/son could still be saved. This time, it's all thanks to Rinso, the medical ninja. If it weren't for Rinso, the medical ninja, mastering multiple medical ninjutsu and having a thorough understanding of human anatomy, he wouldn't have survived, a nurse said. Hearing this, the patient's wife and mother both shifted their gaze to Rinso, who looked like just a child, their expression surprised. Rinso, the medical ninja? The genius doctor whose name has been spreading these past few days. I didn't expect him to be so young. The patient's wife showed a surprised expression. After all, the name Rinso had gained quite a reputation these past few days. Many patients, whom even the Konoha hospital director wasn't confident in saving, were cured by Rinso, a new doctor, without any side effects. This caused Rinso's name to quickly spread throughout Konoha Hospital. However, unless one saw him with their own eyes, no one would guess. The rising star of a genius doctor was actually just a child. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. I still need to study the human anatomy chart further. Rinso sensed familiar chakra, so he didn't want to waste time, said a sentence, and left directly. Yes, Rinso the medical ninja. The nurse didn't stop him, watching Rinso leave, her eyes full of admiration and affection. What a wonderful child. Independent consultation room. After the shadow clone Rinso returned, he closed and locked the door, pulled down the small curtain over the transparent glass part of the door, and then looked at his main body, sitting in his chair. Puff! The shadow clone dispersed. Rinso browsed through the memories, his expression gradually becoming strange. It had only been about a week, right? This shadow clone of his had mastered 2 new medical ninjutsu through self-study, leaving aside the delicate illness extraction technique and the chakra scalpel for a moment. Rinso's gaze fell on the wall of the consultation room, where a banner was hung in the most prominent spot. What in the world was Konoha's #1 medical ninja? Chapter 67. Tion's father is on the verge of death. Lin Sheng saves him. Konoha's foremost medical ninja. Rinso looked at the banner, feeling a mix of surprise and undeniable joy. Although he currently only mastered 3 medical ninjutsu. These 3 medical ninjutsu, however, were the pinnacle of their respective types. The mystical palm technique, an A-rank medical ninjutsu, was the ultimate technique for healing wounds and accelerating recovery. The delicate illness extraction technique, a B-rank medical ninjutsu, countered poison attacks. As long as the poison hadn't penetrated the bone marrow, it could be extracted. The chakra scalpel, an A-rank semi-medical, semi-offensive ninjutsu, could not only sever an opponent's muscle tissue with a brief touch during combat, rendering them unable to fight, but it was also the optimal aid during surgery. Having his own hand transform into a scalpel was a dimensional reduction attack compared to using a physical scalpel. These 3 medical ninjutsu virtually covered most possible injuries one might encounter, coupled with his intimate knowledge of human anatomy and the location of various organs. The combination might truly make him worthy of the title Konoha's foremost medical ninja. Even in the entire ninja world, perhaps only Tsunade currently had the qualifications to surpass him. Knock, knock, knock. Rinso the medical ninja, something's happened. Outside the consultation room, a hospital nurse urgently knocked on the door. Outside Konoha Hospital, at the main entrance of the hospital, on a gurney, a man's breathing was faint, a huge gash ripped across his chest, his internal organs were extensively damaged, and one arm and one leg had been blown off, with blood continuously seeping from the wounds. Beside the gurney, several top medical ninja from Konoha Hospital were working tirelessly to save him, taking turns using the mystical palm technique. However, faced with such severe injuries, even a mystical palm technique could only barely keep the man's condition from worsening, addressing the symptoms but not the root cause. Moreover, as an A-rank ninjutsu, the mystical palm technique's chakra consumption was not low. Even with several medical ninja taking turns, their chakra was almost depleted. Are there any other medical ninja in the hospital who can use the mystical palm technique or other healing medical ninjutsu? Call them all. As a top medical ninja of Konoha Hospital, Ono Shizuko ordered the surrounding nurses. Yes, Rinso the medical ninja can use the mystical palm technique. Someone has already gone to call him, a nearby nurse quickly said. Rinso good. Remembering the little oddity she had once treated, Ono Shizuko nodded. Ono the medical ninja, shouldn't we push the patient into the hospital? A nurse asked, puzzled. Ono Shizuko didn't scold her, explaining, his injuries are too severe right now. He can't be moved at all. Any movement could lead to more severe bleeding. Go get some isolation materials and set up a makeshift operating room here. Yes, Ono the medical ninja. The nurse is quickly moved. Oh dear, these injuries, they're too serious. How could he get such severe injuries? Isn't that the shop owner of the village's ninja tool shop? I heard he went outside the village a few days ago to bring back a batch of chakra metal. How did he get such severe injuries? I heard he encountered robbing ninja on the way. Not only was all the chakra metal stolen, but even the jonin, Hayakumo Seiman, who was protecting the merchant caravan, almost died and is now in the hospital stabilizing his injuries. This ninja tool shop owner's injuries are even more severe than the jonins. It's probably difficult for him this time. The onlookers outside the hospital discussed in low voices. Don't say that. Suddenly, a girl's excited voice interrupted the crowd's discussion. Tintin's eyes were red, and she shook her head in disbelief. My dad will be fine. No one answered Tintin, only looking at her with pity. Tintin, don't be afraid, Mom's here. Tintin's mother knelt on the ground, pulling Tintin into her arms, her eyes gradually moistening. Wah! Tears instantly burst forth. Tintin hugged her mother, her face quickly tear-streaked. For a child her age, the potential loss of her father was undoubtedly a devastating blow, especially since, given the current situation, her father was highly unlikely to survive. Unless it was a medical ninja like Tsunade, no one could save her father. Rinso the medical ninja is here, please make some space. A nurse pushed aside the onlookers, clearing a path for Rinso to approach the gurney. The onlookers, seeing that the newcomer was such a young child, all showed expressions of surprise. This is a medical ninja? Where did this child come from? At this age, he probably doesn't even understand human anatomy. Is the hospital short-staffed? How could they send even a child? Questions instantly arose. Rinso didn't mind, but the nurses and a few others who knew Rinso's capabilities immediately defended him. How can you judge a book by its cover? Rinso the medical ninja is very capable. He's performed limb reattachment surgery, life-saving surgery for critically injured patients, and poison removal surgery for toxins that have entered the internal organs. Although Rinso the medical ninja has performed few surgeries, each one was a major operation, and each time it was perfect. Yes, my husband had surgery not long ago. He had a large wound on his chest, and the toxins had spread into his flesh, but Rinso the medical ninja saved him. Hearing these words, those who had questioned Rinso immediately felt a loss of face. However, they didn't act unreasonably but immediately apologized. Sorry, I just saw he was quite young. Yes, I misjudged. I apologize for what I just said. Go, Rinso the medical ninja. Rinso still didn't respond at this time. He stood on a chair brought by a nurse, looking at the patient's injuries on the bed, his brow furrowed. When he saw the man's face, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. Because he knew the man, Tintin's father, Tenzo. Realizing this, Rinso looked towards the crowd of onlookers. Sure enough, he saw Tintin and her mother, Amatsuki. Rinso-kun. Tintin sniffled, not expecting Rinso the medical ninja to actually be the Rinso she knew. She had originally thought it was just a coincidence of names. Rinso-kun, save my dad. Tintin's tear stains were still fresh, and her eyes were full of hope as she spoke to Rinso. If it were anyone else, Tintin would have given up hope by now. But now it was Rinso, the person who had never disappointed her. Leave it to me. After saying only this simple sentence, Rinso redirected his attention to Tenten's father. Looking at his horrifying injuries, Rinso said to Ono Shizuko and the other medical ninja, "Leave everything to me." As he spoke, he used the mystical palm technique with one hand, a continuous stream of glowing green chakra flowing out. With his other hand, he used the chakra scalpel. Then, he began to excise the necrotic flesh and contaminated organs from Tenten's father's wounds. Instantly, Tenten's father's breathing became even fainter, and his heart rate slowed considerably. Ono Shizuko's eyes widened, not expecting Rinso to dare to take such a risk. Rashly excising these tissues would further expand the injuries. Now, even fully utilizing the mystical palm technique wouldn't be able to counteract Tenzo's loss of life. "Rinso, what are you doing? You'll kill him like this. You just need to maintain the mystical palm technique, keep him alive, and leave the rest to me." Ono Shizuko couldn't help but exclaim. "Little Rinso, Tenten's mother, Emitsuki, frowned, pursing her lips, her eyes filled with an unresolvable sorrow. She had known Rinso for quite some time, occasionally interacting with him because of Tenten. But in her mind, Rinso was ultimately just a talented child. She found it hard to believe Rinso could save her husband. "Tenten." Emitsuki hugged Tenten, her voice sorrowful. "Mom, trust Rinso-kun," Tenten said with a firm tone. "Trust me," Rinso said calmly. Then, ignoring Ono Shizuko's verbal objections, he continued with the removal of the necrotic flesh. Ono Shizuko was helpless and dared not intervene, fearing that an accidental touch of Rinso might cause him to touch Tenzo's vital organs, leading to Tenzo's immediate death. Soon, after Rinso had removed everything that needed to be excised, under the incomprehending gaze of Ono Shizuko and the others, he bit his finger. Then, a drop of bright red blood dripped from his fingertip, falling onto Tenten's father's body. Chapter 68. Kakuzu created his own A-rank assimilation and self-healing technique and robbed a ninja. It was also blood. Rinso's blood dripped into Tenten's father's body, yet it seemed distinct, allowing one to immediately see the difference. His blood pulsed slightly, vibrant and crimson. Facing Tenten's father's blood, it directly assimilated it with an overwhelming force, rapidly. Subsequently, visibly, the blood within Tenten's father's body began to change to the color of Rinso's blood. Seeing this, Rinso understood the time was right and immediately stopped using the mystical palm technique. He placed his hands over Tenten's father's wound, and the chakra within his body poured out almost without reservation. "He's recovering," Ono Shizuko exclaimed in disbelief. Under Rinso's continuous chakra output, Tenten's father's vital signs no longer weakened. Instead, his injuries began to recover at a visible speed. The shattered internal organs in his chest rapidly regenerated, and his body began to use Rinso's chakra as nourishment, frantically producing new blood to replenish his entire system. In a short while, the horrific injuries on Tenten's father's chest had completely healed. Even more astonishing was this. Under Rinso's continuous supply of chakra, Tenten's father's blown-off arm and leg actually grew granulation tissue at the severed points. 1 minute, 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, time slowly passed. Not a single person left. Everyone stared intently at this incredible scene. "It's done," Rinso said, sounding a bit weak. He weakly moved his hands away, got off the chair, and then, not minding the dirt, sat down on it, panting. Looking back at the wheelchair bed, Tenten's father's breathing was steady, his face full of color, and the terrifying injuries on his chest had long since healed, showing no sign that he had almost died just a short while ago. Even more unbelievable was this. His blown-off leg and arm had actually begun to grow new ones from the severed points. If it weren't for the slightly lighter skin color of the newly grown leg and arm, no one would even think that these were new limbs. What kind of ninjutsu is this?" Ono Shizuko asked, her voice a little hoarse. Rinso, still panting, said nonchalantly, "It's a medical ninjutsu I developed myself. Using my blood as a catalyst, combined with precise chakra delivery, he temporarily gains self-healing abilities on par with mine. As for the name, I haven't thought of it yet. How about assimilation, self-healing technique? I feel like the learning difficulty should be around A rank, but I think only I can use it. You don't have my blood, no my chakra reserves." The confidence and sense of security brought by his strength allowed Rinso to reveal his super self-healing ability and terrifying chakra reserves without any reservations. You really are a little monster," Ono Shizuko sighed, then quickly told the stunned nurses and other medical ninja around her, "Don't just stand there, take him to the hospital for another checkup first." Soon, the wheelchair bed was pushed into the hospital. Around them, the onlookers also gradually left. However, each one would glance at Rinso before leaving, their meaning unclear. Suddenly, a dark figure rushed towards Rinso. Whoosh! Tintin threw herself into Rinso's arms with a thud, burying her head in his chest, and sobbed softly. "Thank you, Rinso-kun, thank you." Rinso placed his hand on Tintin's back, gently patting her. "I told you, just leave it to me. Don't cry anymore. Your eyes will get swollen, and that would be bad." "It's okay. Even if they swell, Rinso-kun will heal them for me." Tintin spoke with righteous indignation, but her body immediately stopped crying according to Rinso's words. Thump thump. A tall figure approached and bowed sincerely. "Rinso, thank you." Tintin's mother, Emitsuki, bowed with utmost solemnity to express her gratitude. Rinso accepted it calmly, though he felt as if he had experienced something similar before. Without thinking much, his expression suddenly turned serious as he said, "Aunt Emitsuki, please come to my consultation room with me, so we can discuss what exactly happened." Emitsuki did not refuse, nodding and saying, "All right." In Rinso's consultation room, Tintin and Emitsuki sat on chairs, recounting the events to Rinso. Rinso listened for a while, and through their back-and-forth accounts, he gradually pieced together the full story. So, Uncle Tenmei went outside the village to retrieve a batch of chakra metal, which led to him being robbed and almost dying? Rinso asked, taking a deep breath. Tintin replied, "Dad said this batch of chakra metal was urgently needed, so he personally went with the merchant caravan to get it, wanting to be quicker." Tintin. Emitsuki immediately stopped her. Then, she said to Rinso, "It's thanks to you that Tenmei survived this time." Tintin, and I need to go check on Tenmei now. When you have time, Rinso, please come to my shop, and I'll properly thank you again. With that, Emitsuki hurriedly pulled the bewildered Tintin away. Rinso didn't speak. He just leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. The reason was simple. He knew very well that the reason Tenmei was so anxious to get the chakra metal was because Rinso had urged Tenmei a few days ago to make him some more chakra kanai. In other words, he was definitely responsible for this incident. Is this the butterfly effect? It's not the first time. This damn world. Rinso took a deep breath, stood up, and walked out of the consultation room. In the hospital room, Hayami Shirakumo was bandaged and told to rest well. By his bedside, Rinso asked, "Hayami the Jonin, I wanted to ask, which ninja village or organization did the ninja who robbed the merchant caravan belong to?" Hayami Shirakumo, as a village elite, naturally recognized Rinso and knew his importance, so he did not conceal anything. "I don't know which organization, but as for the ninja village, he was wearing a hidden waterfall village forehead protector, though it was scratched. He should be a rogue ninja from the hidden waterfall village." A rogue ninja from the hidden waterfall village. A name immediately came to Rinso's mind, and he further confirmed, "Would you mind describing his features, Hayami the Jonin?" Hayami Shirakumo said, "Not at all. I don't know his exact appearance. He was wearing a mask that covered the lower half of his face. However, he had a distinct feature. There were stitch marks on his body. This person's strength is considerable. If their target hadn't been that batch of chakra metal, even I might not have returned alive. If you ever encounter him in the future, remember to escape quickly." Rinso nodded in gratitude. "Thank you, Hayami the Jonin." With that, he placed his hand on Hayami Shirakumo's body and activated the mystical palm technique. Under the fluorescent green light, Hayami Shirakumo quickly felt about 70 to 80% of his strength return. He moved and looked at Rinso, his expression surprised. Clearly, he was not yet aware of Rinso's identity as a medical ninja. Rinso smiled at this and said, "A small token of thanks." With that, he left the hospital room. Upon returning to the consultation room, Rinso's expression was calm. He formed a hand sign and created a shadow clone. He said coldly to the shadow clone, "Go. Find Kakuzu and let him know that some goods aren't so easy to rob." Chapter 69, Kakuzu's True Purpose, Hyuga Hayashi's Request. His shadow clone used the Flying Thunder God technique to leave. Rinso looked out the window at the sky. Since noon, after traveling through Hidden Cloud Village and Hidden Mist Village, and then spending no short amount of time at Konoha Hospital, the moon had long since replaced the sun. This afternoon was really fulfilling. Rinso exhaled, relaxing, and with chakra flowing through his body, he intended to instantly teleport away from Konoha Hospital. However, before leaving, he paused for a few seconds, then formed hand seals and left a shadow clone in the consultation room. Afterward, he returned home to his own bedroom. The reason he left a shadow clone at Konoha Hospital wasn't because he had any duties to fulfill. After all, his studies of human anatomy and medical ninjutsu at Konoha Hospital were thanks to the authority of Senju Miho and Hiruzen Saratobi. He could enter and exit Konoha Hospital freely without affecting others. As for the title of medical ninja, it didn't represent a position, but was merely a description of him. He He was willing to leave a shadow clone. Firstly, to continue studying human anatomy and medical ninjutsu. The more he learned, the more likely it was to be useful. Secondly, he possessed the ability. He could heal injuries that even top medical ninja like Ono Shizuko found intractable. He had taken so much from Konoha Hospital, so it was only right to give something back. The mission is complete. Should I bring the chakra metal back to the organization or sell it directly? In a dark cave, Kakuzu used the phantom body technique, manifesting a phantom figure, appearing before Devapath. Devapath, with no expression on his face, spoke in a cold voice. Bring it back to the organization. Chakra metal is still useful. Understood. Kuta nodded. Then his expression showed a hint of displeasure as he said, Don't make me do this kind of thing again. If we need money, killing a few bounty targets is much simpler than this, especially since it easily provokes retaliation. Devapath still had a cold face. Do you have anything else? If not, disconnect. Kakuzu was speechless. Without saying a word, his phantom body disappeared. Just after Kakuzu's phantom body vanished, behind Devapath, Uchiha Obito, wearing a tiger skin mask, slowly emerged from the shadows. Devapath did not turn around, his voice echoing in the room. Making Kakuzu rob a merchant caravan, are you sure it will draw him out for revenge? Uchiha Obito's gloomy voice sounded. I've investigated. With that child's personality, he definitely won't let Kakuzu off. When he appears and targets Kakuzu, you and I must deliver a fatal blow to him, understand? Devapath was silent for a moment, then said, Is it worth it? Obito's voice was cold. Vast chakra would release flying thunder god technique. If he grows a few more years, even if you possess the Rinnegan, you might not be able to deal with him then. Devapath did not refute. Perhaps. Obito said no more, his body becoming intangible as he left. Watching Obito's retreating figure, Devapath muttered to himself, Uchimadara? Huh. The next day, Konoha training ground. Rinso, who had arrived early, as always looked at Hinata and Hyuga Niji, who had also arrived very early. Now, teaching his brother and sister every day was already his warm-up before his daily training. Hinata, Niji, come here. Today, let's further optimize your palm strikes. Okay. Hinata's eyes lit up with joy, a smile on her lips, as she jogged over to Rinso and assumed the palm striking stance. Niji followed closely, standing about a meter next to Hinata, also taking the corresponding stance, waiting for Rinso's guidance. Hinata, your posture is perfect. This is how you achieve the best power output. Niji, same for you. In this aspect, you two have no room for further improvement. Now, begin your practical combat training. I want to see your actual combat skills. Rinso nodded approvingly. Okay. The brother and sister said in unison. Soon, the two occupied opposite sides of the open space in the training ground, forming the confrontation seal, signaling the start of their battle. Then, the two began to fight, exchanging punches and kicks. Rinso watched from the side, and relying on his powerful combat talent and understanding of gentle fist and 8 trigrams palms, he could offer appropriate adjustment suggestions after each of their moves. Hinata, most of your power needs to come from your core, but you also can't use less force in your arms. Niji, while your moves are sharp, you always leave yourself no retreat with each strike. It might be fine when fighting someone weaker, but once you encounter someone not inferior to you, these all become weaknesses. Understand. Got it. The two were incredibly obedient and immediately began to adjust. After some adjustments, their offensive and defensive movements immediately became even smoother, so much so that even some ninja in the training ground who weren't specialized in taijutsu noticed it. Then, they all looked at Rinso with eyes like he was a monster. Although the shock Rinso brought them had never ceased. But in terms of teaching, it used to be only about movement adjustments, and they couldn't quite see the knack. Now that Hinata and Niji were in actual combat, and showed such obvious improvement in their fluidity, it made them fully realize that Rinso was also a genius in teaching others. Clap, clap, clap. Applause sounded from behind Rinso. Rinso turned his head, and an unexpected figure came into his view. Hello, Uncle Hayashi. Rinso politely nodded in greeting, a hint of confusion in his eyes. Hyuga Hayashi coming to the training ground? That was truly rare. Father, clan head, Hinata, and Niji tensed up simultaneously. Hinata even subconsciously moved closer to Rinso, as if that could alleviate her nervousness. Hyuga Hayashi narrowed his eyes slightly, a somewhat fake smile playing on his lips. It seems Hinata relies on you a lot, young Rinso. Hinata's cheeks instantly flushed red. Rinso lifted his head, not avoiding it at all, and smiled. Yes, after all, we are both very important to each other. Hyuga Hayashi's eyes flashed with approval, very frank. Just the facts. Rinso was neither humble nor arrogant. Uncle Hayashi, Is there something you need here? If not, please leave. Being here will affect the training. Facing the influential Hyuga Hayashi, Rinso showed ample politeness, but didn't take it too seriously, speaking without any reservations. Hyuga Hayashi was momentarily choked, then said helplessly, "You really aren't like other people, not afraid of me at all." With that, Hyuga Hayashi pulled out an invitation from his wife. "Hinata's birthday is coming up soon. Would you be willing to attend?" Rinso took the invitation and nodded in agreement. "Of course, I'll be there on time." Beside him, Hinata showed a joyful expression. "Rinso-kun." Putting away the invitation, Rinso looked at Hyuga Hayashi again, smiling. "Uncle Hayashi, you couldn't have come here just to give me an invitation, could you?" Hyuga Hayashi nodded, not denying it, and stated his true purpose for coming. "Young Rinso, do me a favor. Help me save someone." Chapter 70, Hinata and Hanabi's mother. Help me save someone? Rinso was puzzled. It wasn't that he wondered why Hyuga Hayashi would ask him for help. After all, the skill he displayed yesterday when saving Tenen's father was probably known to all influential people in Konoha. His point of confusion was this. He browsed through the plot in his mind, but couldn't think of anyone important enough for Hyuga Hayashi to ask for his help. In the original work's plot, he didn't remember anyone dying from a serious illness. Suppressing the thoughts in his mind, Rinso decided to ask directly, "Hayashi-san, who are we saving?" Hyuga Hayashi glanced at Hinata and Niji next to Rinso, as well as the passers-by, secretly watching, and didn't speak. Seeing this, Rinso understood that Hyuga Hayashi didn't want to discuss it in public, so he said, "Hayashi-san, I'll just go to the Hyuga clan with you." Hyuga Hayashi showed a satisfied expression. Rinso's understanding of how to think from another's perspective made him quite appreciative. If only he were my child, Hyuga Hayashi thought. The thought flashed by, and on Hyuga Hayashi's usually calm face, a rare genuine smile appeared. "Thank you, Rinso-kun. No need to thank me. Anyway, I'm choosing to help you, Hayashi-san, for Hinata's sake." Hyuga Hayashi, "Hinata, Niji, you two continue your training. Hayashi-san and I will leave first." "Okay, Rinso-kun." Hinata nodded obediently. Niji responded coolly. "He's even more obedient than when he's with me." Hyuga Hayashi's eyebrows twitched. Hyuga Estate. Hyuga Hayashi's private courtyard. The door was open, and fresh outdoor air circulated, bringing a gentle, faint smile to the woman lying on the mattress. "Harurin, why is the door open again? The temperature is getting colder now, and you're weak with your pregnancy. You shouldn't be exposed to the wind." Hyuga Hayashi hurried forward and closed the door. Hyuga Harurin heard this and smiled gently, helplessly. "Hayashi, you worry too much about me. A little wind is fine." Hyuga Hayashi, who is usually stern and imposing in front of outsiders, now showed a worried expression and said firmly, "No, it's not fine." Hyuga Harurin immediately hummed, saying as if coaxing a child, It's not fine, it's not fine. Then I won't be in the wind." At this moment, Rinso stood in the corner of the room, watching their interaction with an amused expression. At the same time, he also guessed the identity of the woman in front of him. Long blue-purple hair, a shade darker than Hinata's, delicate features that upon closer inspection bore some resemblance to Hinata's, skin as fair as snow, and even a lack of color in her cheeks. Given this, plus Hyuga Hayashi's attitude and the information unintentionally revealed in his words, how could Rinso not guess that the woman in front of him, whom Hyuga Hayashi called Harurin, was Hinata and Hanabi's mother, who had almost no screen time in the original work? If I calculate the time, Hanabi should be born in March next year. So, the one in her belly now is the future #1 little sister-in-law of the ninja world? Rinso mused to himself. "Harurin, I forgot to tell you, this is Mariki Lin Sheng, Hinata's friend who defeated Niji for her." Hyuga Hayashi suddenly remembered the main purpose and quickly introduced Rinso. Hyuga Harurin looked at Rinso with gentle eyes and softly said, "Are you the Rinso that Hinata always talks about? Hinata even talks about you in her sleep at night. Now that I see you, you really are a good child." "What? Even in her sleep? When did this happen? Why didn't I know?" Hyuga Hayashi almost lost control of his emotions. "Hayashi." Hyuga Harurin's voice was slightly louder. Hyuga Hayashi snorted and immediately stopped talking. Rinso immediately gave Hyuga Harurin a look of admiration. Hyuga Harurin covered her mouth and chuckled softly, then said to Rinso, "Hayashi is just like that. He seems very strict with Hinata, but he actually loves her very much." Hyuga Hayashi turned his head away, not saying a word. Rinso nodded. "I know, Hayashi-san is a typical tsundere whose actions betray his words." Hyuga Hayashi. Stare. Rinso avoided his gaze and directly changed the subject. "Hayashi-san is the person you want me to save, Harurin-san?" As the topic shifted to healing, Hyuga Hayashi's eyebrows visibly drooped, and he said in a deep voice, yes. Rinso nodded and pressed on. What exactly happened? Could you explain it in detail? Rinso only remembered that Hinata's mother was supposed to have died before the story began, but how she died, he had no idea. To Rinso's reasonable question, Hyuga Hayashi told him everything. During the Ninetales attack, the entire Konoha was in a period of reconstruction, and my Hyuga clan also sent out manpower. Harurin was pregnant with Hinata at the time, but she said she didn't need anyone to wait on her, and let them all go to rebuild the village. As a result, with no one looking after her, she accidentally caught a cold, and her body wasn't fully recovered after giving birth to Hinata, so she became weak. In recent years, Harurin's health had actually improved. However, a few months ago, Harurin was found to be pregnant. Already frail, she is now being drained of a large amount of nutrients by the child, and has been bedridden. I'm worried that Harurin... Hyuga Hayashi stopped talking, but Rinso understood that he was worried that Hyuga Harurin wouldn't live much longer. As proven by the original work, Hyuga Hayashi's worries were justified. Hyuga Harurin most likely passed away a few months after giving birth to Hyuga Hanabi. Thinking of this, Rinso frowned and said, I'll examine Harurin-san's physical condition. Okay. Hyuga Hayashi didn't stop him. Or rather, for the past few months, he had been looking for medical ninja to resolve Hyuga Harurin's physical weakness. But none of them had a solution. He wanted to find Lady Tsunade, but was constrained by the clan elders and couldn't mobilize large-scale forces to do such a thing, so it dragged on until now. Therefore, after learning of Rinso's abilities, he personally invited Rinso, even though he had had some unpleasantness with Rinso not long ago. Fortunately, for his daughter's sake, Rinso agreed. While Hyuga Hayashi felt strange, he also looked forward even more to Rinso bringing him a surprise. Rinso walked over to Hyuga Harurin. Through her clothes, he placed his hand on her bulging belly, slowly inputting chakra and sensing her condition. Upon sensing, his brows furrowed even tighter. Her body cells were incredibly sluggish, severely lacking in nutrients. But at the same time, Hyuga Harurin's body also stored some fat, so it wasn't that there were no nutrients to absorb. Finally, with Hyuga Harurin already lacking nutrients and also having difficulty absorbing them herself, Hanabi in her belly was still instinctively absorbing nutrients. Damn, how abstract. You can't do anything either? Seeing Rinso frown, Hyuga Hayashi asked anxiously. Rinso withdrew his hand, shrugged, and smiled. Hayashi-san, you should really be glad you found me. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, even Lady Tsunade, they might not be able to help Harurin-san. Hyuga Hayashi's eyes lit up with surprise. You mean you could do it? Rinso nodded non-committally. The consumption might be very high, but then again, Harurin-san is Hinata's mother. So, leave it to me. Chapter 71 Hayashi Hyuga's Thoughts and His Imaginary Kuratsuchi. Hyuga Hayashi. What's with this inexplicable sense of security? Hyuga Hayashi felt a bit strange. Rinso was clearly just a child the same age as his daughter. Yet, as soon as he spoke, he inexplicably chose to believe him. This convincing feeling is so strange. Hyuga Hayashi suppressed the oddity in his heart and asked, What do you plan to do? Rinso organized his thoughts and said, Aunt Harurin's body is too depleted, to the point where she is too weak to be nourished. Even with nutrients, her body struggles to absorb them. So, the first step is to reduce nutrient intake, to lessen the burden on her organs. Hyuga Hayashi's eyes lit up. Rinso's perspective was truly unexpected. To be weak, yet not consume nutrients. What a novel idea. Rinso didn't know Hyuga Hayashi's thoughts. If he did, he would only say, it wasn't that he was too outstanding, it was that the doctors in the ninja world were too specialized. All their medical ninjutsu serve combat. They were probably better at treating severe injuries or severed limbs than a weakened body like Hyuga Harurin's. If only he were my child. The thought once again surfaced in Hyuga Hayashi's mind. Quickly suppressing it, he then voiced his doubt. You can alleviate the burden on Aunt Harurin's organs this way, but she's pregnant now. It's impossible for her not to supplement nutrients, right? Rinso replied, That's what I'm going to do. Uncle Hayashi, you should already know about my assimilation self-healing technique, right? I do, Hyuga Hayashi nodded. Good, then I'll explain it simply. The assimilation self-healing technique, in essence, is me using my blood as a catalyst and chakra as an energy source, supplying it to the recipient's blood, making the life energy contained in their blood align with mine. So, as long as I perform this ninjutsu on Aunt Harurin once every day, the energy I provide will be sufficient for Aunt Harurin's survival needs and for the baby in her womb to absorb. Rinso's expression was calm, as if this was no big deal to him. But Hyuga Hayashi knew that such a ninjutsu would definitely consume a lot of chakra, especially given Rinso's intention to provide long-term treatment. His hard work and dedication were evident. For Hinata, he's willing to give so much? As a discreet, doting father, Hyuga Hayashi had to admit, if Hinata had to marry in the future, he might only recognize Rinso as a suitable partner. Wait, marriage? Son-in-law equals half a son. If Rinso really married Hinata, wouldn't he gain such a wonderful son? Hyuga Hayashi's eyes brightened as he pondered further. Upon deeper thought, he realized, with Rinso's talent and background, he would undoubtedly be the strongest contender for the Hokage position in the future. Senju Miho's support, his close friends, and their families would most likely support him. If the Hyuga clan also joined his side, wouldn't the Hokage position be set in stone? If Rinso became Hokage, then no one would object to him marrying Hinata. Or rather, they would be overjoyed. Moreover, Hyuga Hayashi looked at Hyuga Harurin's belly. Regardless of whether it was a boy or a girl in that belly, between him and Hinata, only one could become the head of the main family. If Hinata could marry Rinso, the future Hokage, perhaps. Thinking this, Hyuga Hayashi felt like a genius, looking at Rinso with somewhat fervent eyes. Little Rinso, do you have a girl you like? Rinso, Uncle Hayashi, I'm only 4 years old. Isn't it a bit too early to talk about this? Rinso showed a speechless expression. 4 years old, Hyuga Hayashi came back to his senses, realizing he had indeed spoken too soon. It was also Rinso's fault. His physique, mindset, way of thinking, and tone of voice. Everything about him made it impossible for anyone to guess he was only 4 years old. Ahem. In any case, remember to visit the Hyuga clan often from now on, Hyuga Hayashi said, regaining his composure. Yes, after all, I need to treat Aunt Harurin's illness, Rinso said, not noticing Hyuga Hayashi's subtly upturned lips. At such a young age, while discussing romance might be inappropriate, fostering affection was not out of the question. This son-in-law, this adopted son, he belonged to the Hyuga clan alone. The Wagakure. Walking down the commercial street, Kuratsuchi looked down at her feet, spacing out, wondering what she was thinking. Grr! Her stomach rumbled. Kuratsuchi rubbed her belly, smacking her lips. She hadn't eaten breakfast today. It wasn't that she forgot to eat or that her family hadn't prepared it for her. She simply had no appetite, because for some reason, the food Rinso made yesterday afternoon was incredibly rich in flavor, leaving her lingering and constantly thinking about it. As a result, facing her usual breakfast this morning, she couldn't eat a single bite. That hateful guy, making me starve this morning. Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth fiercely. Mariki Lin Sheng, who was quietly at home, preparing to eat breakfast. Achoo! Who's thinking of me? Kuratsuchi muttered to herself, her thoughts wandering, saying, It's strange, why was his food so delicious? She was completely baffled. Suddenly, a memory surfaced in her mind. At that time, she was at home, in her own room. An Awagakure ninja had urgently arrived, reporting to her father, Kitsuchi, in the living room, and she was eavesdropping. She vaguely remembered. The matter that the ninja had to report, even coming to her house, was about a special drug that had appeared in the land of Earth. Once consumed, one would gradually become addicted, slowly becoming unable to live without that drug, and eventually be controlled by the drug seller, turning into a puppet at their mercy. Could it be that Ueo added this to his food? Kuratsuchi's eyes suddenly widened, and she immediately put herself in that situation. Yes, it must be like this. He added that special drug to the food. Otherwise, why would it be so delicious, making me unable to eat other food? With no evidence, based purely on speculation, Kuratsuchi was absolutely convinced. If that's the case, wouldn't I be manipulated by him? Kuratsuchi's mind conjured an image of herself, for that one bite of food, willingly becoming a servant, humbly begging Rinso, just for another taste. And Rinso just coldly watched her. No! Kuratsuchi shouted out loud. On the commercial street, the surrounding villagers of Awagakure cast their gazes, looking confusedly at the inexplicably shouting Kuratsuchi, clicking their tongues and shaking their heads. Kuratsuchi ignored these stares and rushed towards Rinso's residence. The Wagakure residence. Rinso sat on the sofa, with a dish, a soup, and a pot of fragrant rice on the coffee table in front of him. In the Hokage world, various foods were exactly like those in a certain island nation from his previous life, all leaning towards blandness. He wasn't unable to accept it, just not particularly fond of it, so he often ate grilled meat and ramen outside. Now in a Wagakure, with the opportunity, he naturally wouldn't miss it. Even though he was a shadow clone, eating or not eating was actually optional for him. Picking up his rice bowl, Rinso was about to start eating when a violent thump, thump, thump at the door forced him to stop. Putting down the rice bowl, Rinso walked over to open the door. Opening the door, standing there was an exasperated Kuratsuchi. Before Rinso could speak, Kuratsuchi spoke first. You bad guy, why would you do this to me? Grr. Kuratsuchi's face flushed red, covering her stomach. Do such a thing to me. Rinso. Grr. Her stomach rumbled again. It was at this moment. Through the crack in the door, Kuratsuchi saw the freshly cooked food on the coffee table, and its fragrant aroma instantly made her head a little hazy. Her body instinctively swallowed, and her legs also instinctively moved, carrying her to the sofa where she sat down. She picked up the rice bowl Rinso had put down, quickly grabbing food and eating. As she ate, she was also crying. Wah, I've been controlled by drugs and have fallen. Rinso, which unfed pig ran out. I haven't eaten a single grain of rice for 2 consecutive meals. Chapter 72 Kuratsuchi, the servant, and the Uzumaki mother and daughter of Kusagakure. Rinso had to be sure this was his only chance in life. He tensed his legs and quickly rushed to Kuratsuchi's side, grabbing her by the back of her collar and lifting her whole body. Whoa! Kuratsuchi was still crying, looking very sad. If you ignored her incredibly satisfied expression and the greasy corners of her mouth at the moment. What exactly do you want? Rinso's forehead furrowed with dark lines, and a deep sense of powerlessness washed over him. He had educated Sasuke and Neji, killed Chunin, and even fought Obito. This was the first time he felt so helpless. Could it be that his identity had been exposed, but Iwagakure didn't dare to act? So they specifically sent Kuratsuchi to eat all his food every day, letting him starve to death? Well, that reason was ridiculous. But Rinso really couldn't figure out Kuratsuchi's motive anymore. Didn't she say she wouldn't let him off? Didn't she say this matter wasn't over? So, she meant that the matter of him not having food every day wasn't over, right? Thud. Throwing Kuratsuchi onto the sofa, Rinso protectively pushed the food away a bit, his face grim as he spoke. What exactly do you want? Kuratsuchi licked the soup stain from the corner of her mouth, then pouted, looking a little wronged. What do you mean? What do I want? You're the one who controlled me with drugs, made my belly big, and made me unable to leave you every day. Rinso, don't talk nonsense. When did I ever do that? Did I ever provoke you from beginning to end? Rinso was utterly speechless. He now felt like he had eaten too many chilies, causing hemorrhoid bleeding, and his roommate thought he had gotten his period. Then, in a dream while sleeping at night, he felt like he was pooping and it wouldn't break off, going deeper and deeper, and the next day, he woke up to find one of his roommate's lips swollen. Humph. Kuratsuchi showed an unyielding expression, tilting her head and saying, Don't think that just because you fed me the kind of drug, you can control me. That's impossible. Ooh. Rinso took a deep breath to steady himself and grasped the key point. What's this about the drug you mentioned? Hearing Rinso's words, Kuratsuchi didn't notice Rinso's confusion, only assuming Rinso was still being stubborn. So she showed a confident expression and said, Humph, you think you can hide it from me? Some time ago, I overheard someone reporting to my father. So, your food is so irresistibly delicious. It must have been laced with that drug, right? Rinso, after hearing all of Kuratsuchi's conjectures, his cooking is delicious equals he used drugs? What a joke. Although his cooking skills were indeed good, and with his past life experience, the taste of his dishes was richer than those in the ninja world. But he wasn't the protagonist of some cooking anime who could make glowing dishes or aphrodisiac dishes. This child, she's just simply gluttonous. Rinso felt he had grasped the truth. He opened his mouth, ready to point out the logical flaws in Kuratsuchi's words, to make Kuratsuchi face reality, and to stop her from disturbing him while he ate in the future. But as he opened his mouth, an idea suddenly popped into his head. Wait, since Kuratsuchi now thinks I've controlled her with drugs? Rinso's lips curled up slightly. Then, he gave Kuratsuchi a look that said, You actually figured it out, and smiled. I didn't expect you to guess. Since that's the case, then you are my servant. Do you hear me? Kuratsuchi shook her head in horror. No. Rinso laughed sinisterly. You have no say in this. Within the land of grass, the shadow clone Rinso bent down and casually left a flying thunder god mark on the ground. Strange, the land of rain has continuous rain all year round, so the ground should be very wet. Rinso, who had come to look for Kakuzu, showed a puzzled expression. Since he set off yesterday, he hadn't given himself any rest. While inquiring about Kakuzu, he learned that Kakuzu had gone to Hidden Rain Village. Rinso was naturally no stranger to Hidden Rain Village, the birthplace of the Akatsuki organization. Kakuzu appearing in Hidden Rain Village, and the news reaching him at just the right time. Rinso had reason to suspect that there must be a huge conspiracy waiting for him. Perhaps Pain and Obito were using Kakuzu as bait, waiting for him to fall into their trap. However, with his strength, even as a shadow clone, dealing with Kakuzu shouldn't be a problem. This was something Obito and Pain most likely wouldn't expect. Even if he, a shadow clone, knew there was a tiger in the mountain, he could still choose to go towards the tiger mountain. Perhaps it's an outer area, so it's not that wet. Rinso thought, deciding to continue deeper, directly, to Hidden Rain Village. At this time, on the road Rinso had taken, at a fork in the road, a signpost marked Land of Rain was blown by the wind, and its loosely fixed arrow pointed in another direction. Clearly, this Schrodinger's signpost, until you actually reached the place, you would never know if it was pointing correctly or incorrectly. As he continued deeper into the Land of Rain, Rinso's confusion grew stronger. Why did it get drier the deeper he went? Could it be that this was a parallel Hokage world? Was the Land of Rain here not a country with constant rain, but a country that constantly prayed for rain? Holding this doubt, Rinso walked for another while and saw an ordinary village. The villagers were drying clothes, some were feeding poultry, all very ordinary. Rinso casually found an old woman, about 60 years old, and asked, "Hello, excuse me, where is Hidden Rain Village?" The old woman who was asked for directions saw such a small child like Rinso, first looked behind Rinso to see if there was anyone else, and seeing no adults following, immediately said, "Little child, whose child are you? Why are you out alone?" The old woman asked with concern, "I'm fine, Grandma. You just need to tell me how to get to Hidden Rain Village." Although the old woman didn't answer him, Rinso politely asked again, "What Hidden Rain Village? Little child, don't wander around. Those mountain bandits and ninja are very dangerous. Seeing how good-looking you are, they might just snatch you away." The old woman still didn't answer, instead starting to nag. Rinso maintained a smile, deciding in his heart that he would definitely transform into an adult form later. At the same time, he also noticed one thing. The old woman's confusion about Hidden Rain Village didn't seem fake. An old woman who had lived for decades wouldn't even know her own country's ninja village? Rinso had a few conjectures in his mind, so he stopped asking for the location of Hidden Rain Village and instead asked another question. "Grandma, what country is this?" "It's the Land of Grass, little child. Why are you asking this? Are you lost?" The old woman asked with concern. Rinso shook his head, feeling a bit exasperated. He had thought so much, even thinking it was a parallel world or something else, but it turned out he had simply taken the wrong path. "Then I'm fine, Grandma. I'll be going now." He didn't ask any more questions. Rinso waved his hand and left directly. The old woman reached out her hand, and seeing Rinso leave, she spoke with some regret. "Alas, this child is so good-looking. It would be great if he stayed to be a child husband for my granddaughter." Leaving the small village, Rinso decided to go to Hidden Grass Village first. Firstly, to leave a flying thunder god mark in this place for emergencies. Secondly, he needed to buy a map. Hidden Grass Village. In a dilapidated small house, a red-haired mother and daughter huddled together. The red-haired girl looked at the bite marks on her mother's body with distress. "Mom, does it hurt?" Uzumaki Karen asked with concern. The woman gently stroked her daughter's hair and softly said, "Mom, doesn't hurt. It's just a couple of bites. At least our mother and daughter have a home now." Knock knock. After two casual knocks on the door, suddenly, several Kusagakure ninja forcibly broke down the door and, upon entering, forcefully said to the woman, "Come with us. There's an injured person." The woman was silent for a moment, then weakly stood up. Beside her, Uzumaki Karen, seeing this, quickly stood in front of her mother. "No more. Mom is already very weak. If this continues, Mom will die." Slap. The Kusagakure ninja casually slapped Uzumaki Karen away and said coldly, "It's not your place to speak." Saying that, he looked at the woman, his eyes cold. The woman dared not resist, gently touched Uzumaki Karen, and softly said, "Karen, Mom will be back soon. Don't be afraid." Saying that, she was forcibly dragged away by the Kusagakure ninja. Uzumaki Karen shook her head and shouted, tears streaming down, "Mom." Chapter 73. I'll give you one more chance to say one more word. Entering the Hidden Grass Village, Rinso intuitively felt the gap between ninja villages. Compared to Konoha Village, where every family had a decent house, the houses in the Hidden Grass Village were noticeably fewer. Even though he had arrived at what should be the busiest commercial street in the Hidden Grass Village, he didn't see many good houses. In fact, there were even people in ragged clothes begging on the street. They possessed chakra, yet the entire ninja world is so underdeveloped. It's tragic. Rinso shook his head slightly, not bothering to worry about it. His gaze swept over most of the shops on the commercial street, then locked onto a ninja tool shop. Generally, besides ninja tool shops also sold military rations for stamina replenishment and maps for navigation. Entering the ninja tool shop with its wide-open door, Rinso looked at the bald middle-aged man sitting at the cashier. If he wasn't mistaken, this was most likely the shop owner. Without initiating conversation, Rinso surveyed the entire ninja tool shop, finding many ninja tools hanging on the walls. Shuriken, kunai, long swords, short swords, everything was available. However, the quality was mediocre, much worse than the ninja tools at Tenen's ninja tool shop. "This way, customer. I'm the shop owner here. What would you like to buy?" The shop owner rubbed his hands, his eyes gleaming. He assessed Rinso, making a judgment in his mind. He looks about a dozen years old, very fair-skinned, no calluses on his hands, and his clothes look good in texture and design. He's also wearing a mask, so he must be a pampered young master. He's probably interested in ninja and wants to buy some ninja tools to try them out. The shop owner's eyes were excited. Having run a ninja tool shop for many years, he knew exactly how big a fat sheep someone like Rinso was. However, Rinso's first words immediately shattered his beautiful dream. Give me a map. Just one map. The shop owner's face fell, and the enthusiasm in his voice immediately diminished. Yes, Rinso calmly affirmed. All right, got it. The shop owner impatiently pulled a slightly creased map from the cashier's drawer and slapped it onto the counter. 8 tails, no bargaining. Rinso didn't bother to argue. He paid casually and put away the map. He had no interest in the Hidden Grass Village. With the map bought and the Flying Thunder God mark already placed, there was no reason to stay. Walking out of the ninja tool shop, Rinso was about to leave when he suddenly saw several ninja walking down the street, heading in one direction. The ninja themselves weren't worth his attention. The main thing was that these ninja were subtly holding a woman captive. A red-haired woman. Memories deep in his mind began to resurface. Red hair, Hidden Grass Village. These keywords, when connected, instantly brought a certain character to Rinso's mind. The first love-struck woman in the original work who was utterly devoted to Sasuke. One of the only 3 surviving Uzumaki clan members, and the girl with the highest bloodline concentration among them. Uzumaki Karen. That amount of chakra, even though she's emanating a weak aura, still far exceeds most ninja. She's definitely of Uzumaki or Senja bloodline. Coupled with that distinctive red hair, it's certainly the Uzumaki clan. Rinso quickly made his judgment. At the same time, he also guessed the woman's identity. Karen's mother, who had few lines in the original work and died from chakra depletion due to excessive healing by Hidden Grass Village ninja. Tisk, I've been transmigrated for too long, some memories are blurry, and I forgot about this mother and daughter. Fortunately, it's not too late. A flicker of determination flashed in Rinso's eyes as he quickly pursued the direction the Hidden Grass Village ninja had taken. Soon, following the traces left by the Hidden Grass Village ninja, Rinso arrived at what was likely the Hidden Grass Village hospital. Stepping inside, a faint smell of blood wafted into his nostrils. If you're sick, go over there to register, a Hidden Grass Village medical staff member at the reception calmly said. Rinso ignored him and walked straight in one direction. The receptionist glanced at him, didn't bother to intervene, assuming Rinso was there to visit someone. In a large ward, an area of about 100 square meters, blue curtains separated individual sections, and dozens of injured ninja tossed and turned in pain on their beds. Roll up your sleeve. The Hidden Grass Village ninja who had brought Karen's mother here urged, pushing Karen's mother. Hearing this, Karen's mother raised her somewhat thin hand and rolled up her sleeve. Instantly, a horrifying sight was revealed. Her pristine white arms were covered in dense, crisscrossing bite marks, some deep, some shallow, indicating that new bite marks had appeared before the old ones had faded. Like a pack of rabid dogs, more than a dozen people instantly swarmed around Karen's mother, vying to bite her. Karen's mother's brows twitched, but she didn't make a sound, her expression lifeless. The chakra in her body was draining, and her breathing gradually became faint. Their Uzumaki clan's potential ability, physical healing, allowed them to restore stamina and chakra by biting through the skin. But such recovery couldn't be without cost. Each time she healed others, it consumed her chakra. And chakra, a product of the combination of physical and spiritual energy, was essentially a person's life force. If it ran out, she would die. Fortunately, her chakra reserves were sufficient. Although she had been drained for a long time, leading to physical weakness, she could still hold on. Or rather, she had to hold on. Otherwise, after her death, Karen would definitely take her place and be constantly bled by these devils. Thinking of this, Karen's mother forced herself to regain her spirits, bracing her body to keep from swaying, even as more and more people bit her. However, often, willpower alone cannot determine the outcome. Even with her strong will, her chakra was almost at rock bottom. No. Please, give me some time to rest, she finally spoke, pleading with the Hidden Grass Village ninja beside her. However, she only received a cold glare. Clearly, with Uzumaki Karen as an alternative, his approach to Karen's mother was to drain the well dry. The surrounding Hidden Grass Village ninja bit even more frantically. Karen's mother struggled, but was bitten more fiercely. Steady footsteps approached from afar, entering the room. Tap, tap, tap. Rinso lightly tapped his knuckles on the open door. Am I interrupting you? The Hidden Grass Village ninja turned back, assessing Rinso, and frowned. You're not a ninja from our Hidden Grass Village. Who are you? Rinso didn't want to reveal his identity and casually said, "A wanderer." The hidden grass village ninja disdainfully said, "A wanderer? What a laughable kid, trying to be mysterious here. Now get out, or you'll regret it." Saying this, he reached out to grab Rinso's collar. Rinso glanced, slightly dodged, and drew his hand from his waist. Clang! The cold chill of a long sword struck the hidden grass village ninja's neck, less than an inch from his windpipe. At the same time, Rinso's chakra was fully released, and the terrifying aura made everyone momentarily stop breathing. Rinso's dark eyes looked at the hidden grass village ninja, his voice calm and cold, leaving no doubt that the person before him would instantly kill him. "I'm giving you one more chance to speak." Chapter 74. The classic hero saves the damsel in distress. The immense amount of chakra almost solidified, making everyone gasp for breath. The injured individuals who had been frantically biting Karen's mother immediately released their mouths, their legs giving out as they collapsed to the ground. A cold glint shone on the iron blade, pressed against the Uzumaki ninja's neck, preventing him from moving an inch. Beads of sweat the size of beans dripped from his forehead onto the ground. The Uzumaki ninja couldn't help but swallow, his atoms apple bobbing and touching the sharp blade, instantly creating a thin scratch of blood. Immediately, an uncontrollable fear made the Uzumaki ninja make the most correct choice. "Your command." It was an unsurprising answer. In Rinso's impression, Hidden Grass Village itself was a fickle fence-sitter in the ninja world, a spineless bunch, only good at internal strife. Such a village, such an environment, producing equally weak ninja, was not surprising. I'm taking her with me." Rinso pointed to Karen's mother, whose breath was weak, his tone brooking no argument. The Uzumaki ninja was slightly startled, feeling very unwilling in his heart. It wasn't that he cared about Karen's mother as an individual. Mainly, he thought that Rinso, who had suddenly appeared, would absolutely not just take Karen's mother. Most likely, he would take Karen as well. If that were the case, wouldn't their hidden grass village lose such a useful blood bank? How could this be allowed? Could it be? The Uzumaki ninja wanted to discuss, but the next second, the longsword was already pressing against his neck again. Clang! "You can keep talking if you think I'm discussing with you." Rinso's calm voice came out, utterly confident. "I wouldn't dare. Please, go ahead." To save his life, he even used an honorific. Rinso expressed disdain. Swish, swish, swish. After a flourish of his sword, the long sword returned to its sheath. Rinso bent down to help Karen's mother up, his voice softening a little. "Come with me." Karen's mother's consciousness was a bit blurry, but feeling the sense of security Rinso brought, she instinctively nodded. Seeing this, Rinso injected some chakra into her body, then supported one of her arms and began to walk out. The figures of the two disappeared from the room. The Uzumaki ninja, who had been breathless under Rinso's chakra, all spoke to the ninja Rinso had just threatened. "Lord Jonin, we can't just let her go like that. Without her, what about our injuries?" "Lord Jonin, my injuries haven't healed yet." "Lord Jonin, you can't make decisions on your own." The noisy voices in his ears made the Uzumaki Jonin's anger grow, and he roared, "Shut up, you bunch of good-for-nothings. Can't you see? His speed is so fast that no one can see him clearly, and he has such a massive amount of chakra. If you want to die, don't drag me down." Afterward, he touched the bloodstain on his neck and spat. "Pa, why did I have to encounter such a cliché hero saving the beauty?" The Uzumaki clan's recovery ability is extremely powerful. After leaving the hospital with Karen's mother, it wasn't long before she regained consciousness and mobility, although she was still very weak. She looked at the masked Rinso and sincerely thanked him. Thank you. Rinso waved his hand and said, "It was nothing more than a small favor. After all, you're one of the few Uzumaki clan members left in the ninja world. I can't just let those beasts harm you to death." Karen's mother showed a moved expression. She could tell that Rinso's words were not false, and she was very grateful in her heart. "Come with me in a bit. I'll take you to Konoha village. At least there, you can have a place to live peacefully." Karen's mother nodded, gratefully saying, "Thank you so much." But then, a blush appeared on her face, and she said awkwardly, "Could I trouble you to be even more benevolent and take my daughter with you as well? If possible, I don't care what happens to me, but please take my child with you." Her tone was cautious, afraid that Rinso would find it troublesome and be unwilling to meddle further. To this, Rinso was not annoyed at all. Instead, a hint of joy flashed in his eyes. She finally said it. "I've been waiting for a long time," Rinso thought to himself. Karen's mother had no idea that if Rinso hadn't already known about Karen's existence, and even intentionally waited for her to reveal Karen's existence herself, and then take them both away, then Rinso would have already left with her by now, not needing to drag it out for so long. "Your daughter?" "Yes, it's no trouble." Showing no emotion, Rinso spoke calmly. Thud, dong. Karen's mother knelt on both knees, directly performing a resounding kowtow. Seeing this, Rinso reacted quickly by dodging to the side. Joking aside, bowing was fine, but kowtowing would shorten his lifespan. Helping Karen's mother up, Rinso said, "Instead of thanking me, it's better to go and bring the person over first. Otherwise, who knows what the Kusagakure ninja might do." Yes, Karen's mother nodded, her gratitude undiminished. The two quickened their pace, heading toward the outskirts of Hidden Grass Village. After a certain distance, and before they even reached the place, Rinso's expression changed. "Something's happening. I'll go ahead." Saying this to Karen's mother, Rinso's figure flickered, and he quickly departed. Karen's mother was startled at first, then reacted, immediately realizing something had happened, and her expression instantly became panicked. Karen, in a dilapidated grass hut. Karen sat on the bed, her eyes blank. Thinking about the scene of her mother leaving, she continuously prayed in her heart that nothing bad would happen. "Mom, please come back soon." Little Karen prayed with clasped hands. It was as if her prayers had taken effect. Karen suddenly heard footsteps coming from outside the hut. "Mom!" Karen's first thought was that her mother had returned, and she quickly got up to open the door. However, when she opened the door, it wasn't the mother she longed for, but a group of Kusagakure ninja, like jackals. Karen was startled by their gazes and retreated repeatedly. "Where is my mom?" "Your mom? Someone stole her." The injured Kusagakure ninja stared at Karen as if she were an object. Since her mother was stolen, they didn't mind activating Uzumaki Karen right now. As for the Jonin's instructions, they didn't listen at all. Possibly being killed and dying from their injuries made no difference to them. Moreover, that powerful wanderer might not be willing to bother saving both of them. If they quickly came and took Karen away, that person would most likely find it troublesome and not bother. Right? Stolen by someone? Karen's eyes were blank, not understanding what was happening. However, not giving her time to think, the Kusagakure ninja had already reached out their wicked hands towards her. "No!" Karen screamed in fear, shielding her body with her arms, trembling uncontrollably. The air fell silent. The imagined sensation of being dragged did not come. Karen opened her eyes and saw the Kusagakure ninja already on the ground, and the figure standing at her doorstep with his back to the sunlight. The figure's face was half covered by a mask, revealing only a pair of dark yet incredibly bright eyes, looking at her gently. Karen inexplicably remembered a star she had seen on a certain night. It seemed not as bright as the eyes of the person before her. Chapter 75. Return to Konoha, Inoki's instruction. Clip-clop, clip-clop, clip-clop. River water gurgles. On the carriage heading to Konoha village, Karen leaned in her mother Uzumaki Koyo's arms, secretly glancing at Rinso every now and then. This made it impossible for Rinso to even read a book, although he felt that part of the reason was that the book was simply too boring. Most books in the ninja world were realistic travelogues, so they generally lacked exciting plot points and climaxes, making them very dull to read. In contrast, Aika Paradise was interestingly written and also contained some intimate content that made everyone blush, so it was no wonder it became a bestseller throughout the ninja world. Back to the main topic. Rinso felt he needed to find out what was going on. Could it be that he had a piece of leaf or some dirt on his face? After all, although he was currently using transformation jutsu to transform into the handsome appearance he would likely grow into in the future, he was wearing a mask, so it shouldn't be attracting so much attention. Thinking this, Rinso asked Karen, "Why are you looking at me? Is there something on my face?" As he spoke, he leaned his face closer, wanting Karen to remove whatever might have gotten on it. However, this action was too stimulating for Karen. As those black eyes suddenly came close, Karen felt her heart stop, and her breathing became uncontrollably heavy. "Ha! Karen, what's wrong?" Uzumaki Koyo, with a worried expression, gently shook her precious daughter in her arms. "Oh, nothing." Karen snapped out of it, reached out and touched Rinso's face, then lowered her head and said, It's fine now." Rinso pulled his face back, casually said, "Thanks," and then continued reading his book. There was nothing he could do. He wanted to hide his identity to carry out his mission, so he couldn't directly use Flying Thunder God technique to bring Karen and her mother back to Konoha. Thus, he could only find a merchant caravan traveling from the land of grass to Konoha village, pay to hitch a ride in a carriage, and take Karen and her mother back. Adhering to the principle of seeing a good deed through to the end, he couldn't just leave abruptly. He had to stay in the carriage with them. Reading was his only form of entertainment. It's a journey of several days from the land of grass to Konoha village. "Looks like it's going to be a long haul," Rinso muttered, then put down the book in his hand and picked up another one to read. As for Karen's gaze, after he had just stirred things up a bit, she no longer secretly glanced at him every now and then, but instead stared directly without looking away. Sigh. Too charming, what can I do? It seems next time I'll have to consider wearing a mask to cover my entire face. Konoha Village. Rinso, unaware of the huge surprise a shadow clone had prepared for him, was giving Hyuga Harurin her first day of treatment. The chakra scalpel activated, cutting open Hyuga Harurin's skin. Then Rinso bit his finger, dripped his blood in, and channeled chakra to activate the assimilation self-healing technique. A surge of vital energy poured into Hyuga Harurin's body, instantly improving her complexion and bringing a gentle smile to her face. At the same time, Rinso's energy was also detected by the unborn Hyuga Hanabi, who frantically absorbed it. After a while, until Hanabi inside stopped absorbing, Rinso withdrew his hand, stopping the chakra transmission. Rinso licked his dry lips and let out a breath. Hayashi-san, it's done. Is it? Hyuga Hayashi leaned next to Hyuga Harurin, looking at his wife's long-lost healthy glow, and a rare smile appeared on his face. Turning his head, Hyuga Hayashi looked at Rinso, who was clearly quite drained, and fumbled in his chest pocket, pulling out a large banknote. Buy something to eat. If you need anything in the future, just tell me. Hyuga Hayashi handed the banknote to Rinso. Rinso initially wanted to refuse. After all, he hadn't spent much time on the treatment, and although he looked weak, he would recover shortly. Taking money for it would tarnish his friendship with Hinata. 10,000 ryo. The value of the banknote caught his eye. Rinso's pupils contracted, and he instantly retracted his previous thought. What tarnishing friendship? By accepting the banknote, he was showing that he wanted to maintain this friendship. Otherwise, if he unilaterally gave without receiving, this friendship would inevitably become unequal. So, he had to accept this banknote. Putting the banknote away, Rinso smiled. Hayashi-san, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Hyuga Hayashi nodded. He also wanted to talk more with his wife, who had recovered some strength, so he didn't keep Rinso. I'll grant you permission to freely enter and exit the Hyuga estate. Remember to come tomorrow. Of course. Rinso showed a very genuine smile. The Wagakure. Rinso walked out of his house, preparing to stroll through a Wagakure's commercial street and buy something to eat. Behind him was Kuratsuchi, her face full of humiliation, yet she could only obediently follow. She was now Rinso's servant, or rather, his little follower. This outing together was for her to carry things. You hateful guy, if only I could beat you. Kuratsuchi muttered softly, shaking her fist at Rinso's back. Suddenly, Rinso stopped. Kuratsuchi, not paying attention, crashed right into him. Ouch! Unable to keep her balance, Kuratsuchi fell on her bottom, and tears immediately welled up from the pain. Boo-hoo, why did you stop suddenly? Rinso ignored Kuratsuchi and spoke respectfully. Master. Master? Grandpa Inoki. Kuratsuchi immediately wiped her tears and stood up. She didn't want to be seen crying. Inoki stroked his beard, smiling as he looked at Rinso and Kuratsuchi, and nodded. It seems you two are getting along well. Indeed. Rinso nodded. No, we're not. Kuratsuchi was about to deny it when Rinso pulled her and whispered, If you say anything silly, I won't cook for you anymore. Kuratsuchi choked, then somewhat begrudgingly changed her words. We are indeed getting along very well. Although Rinso spoke softly, Inoki still heard what was said. Or rather, Rinso didn't really try to hide it. After all, he only said he wouldn't cook for her. Such words, to Inoki's ears, sounded more like the two had a good relationship, and Kuratsuchi was just being tsundere and unwilling to admit it. Haha, it's good that you're getting along well. Master, do you need me for something? Rinso roughly guessed Inoki's intention, but still wanted to confirm. Inoki didn't hide it, saying, I have some time these days. How about I start teaching you ninjutsu? Rinso's eyes lit up, and he said, Can it be a little later? I haven't had breakfast yet. Inoki nodded. Yes, just come to my office directly then. I'll also introduce you to your senior disciple and second senior disciple. Understood. Rinso agreed, and in his mind appeared the image of that guy who was willing to sacrifice his life for his explosive art. A genius who became a Kaga-level expert at 15 or 16, Deidara. After Inoki left, Rinso turned to Kuratsuchi and said, You can go. Let me go. You don't have some scheme, do you? Kuratsuchi was a little disbelieving. She had just been told to be his follower not long ago. So why the sudden change in attitude? I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't leave, you'll continue to be my follower. Rinso couldn't be bothered to explain. I'm leaving now. Kuratsuchi naturally didn't want to be a follower. Hearing this, she didn't ask any more questions and ran away quickly, disappearing in an instant. Rinso smiled, preparing to find an uninhabited place to summon his main body. This time, he was guaranteed to meet 2 high-value individuals, Inoki and Deidara, so he might just get some good drops. Chapter 76, Kurama Yakumo's Choice, Chakra, Attribute Test. Konoha Village. Konoha Training Ground. After leaving the Hyuga clan and resting to recover his chakra, Rinso returned to the training ground. At the training ground, Tintin and the others had already arrived and begun their respective training. Shursui was teaching Tintin how to throw ninja tools. Kakashi was helping Sasuke master his great fireball jutsu. Naruto and Lee were doing physical training with Might Guy, running laps around the training ground on their hands. Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji were using their secret techniques in coordination with Asuma for combat training. Sakura was continuing to learn precise chakra control from Kurinai Yui, who also had to keep an eye on Hyuga Niji and Hyuga Hinata nearby. This brother and sister pair were still sparring, their gentle fist mastery reaching a new level. The entire training ground was orderly, a tacit understanding developed over a long time by everyone present. Only one person was an exception, Ama Yakumo. She sat alone on a bench, watching the training crowd with envious eyes, her face pale. She put in no less effort, but her physical limitations meant she had to rest after training for less than half the time of others. If only I could control my mental strength, Anma Yakumo muttered softly. What if only? It's a certainty. You definitely can do it. A familiar voice sounded beside her, and Anma Yakumo could clearly feel someone sit down next to her. Turning her head, a gentle smile unconsciously appeared on her lips. You're here, Rinso-kun. Rinso nodded, patted his chest, and said, Yakumo, I now have an idea of how to help you master your mental strength, so don't worry. Anma Yakumo didn't take him seriously, assuming Rinso was just comforting her. Rinso-kun, don't worry, I won't give up on myself because of this, so you don't need to comfort me like this. Anma Yakumo smiled gently, but I'm still very grateful that you're willing to go to such trouble for me. You're a really good friend. Rinso understood Anma Yakumo's disbelief, but he really did have a lead and genuinely wanted to ask for her opinion. If you think I'm a good friend, then just humor me, Rinso said. How about you pick one of the options I'm about to give you? Anma Yakumo smiled, willing to play along with Rinso, all right. Seeing this, Rinso immediately began to explain the several plans a shadow clone had discussed that day. For example, performing a soul connection, linking Anma Yakumo's soul with another person's, so that two people could share the immense pressure of this vast soul power. However, the person connected would need to have sufficiently strong physical capabilities to bear the soul power pressure. Otherwise, it would just create another Anma Yakumo. Another example was for Anma Yakumo to materialize a portion of her soul power outside her body, similar to psychic abilities, which could be freely controlled, but the main body would permanently lose the benefits brought by that portion of mental strength. And then there was the purest method, directly sealing the soul power, similar to a Jinchuriki, only to be used when necessary, and gradually unsealed as her body truly matured in the future. Beside him, listening to the plans Rinso presented, although she didn't believe them, Anma Yakumo still made her choice very seriously. If possible, just seal it directly. I believe that even without powerful mental strength, I can still become a master of Jinjutsu. Anma Yakumo said confidently. Rinso nodded knowingly. Enough about that. Rinso-kun, I made you lunch. I'll go get it now. Anma Yakumo no longer focused on the mental strength issue, and instead stood up to retrieve the bento box. Rinso sat on the bench, suddenly feeling a new memory appear in his mind. After browsing through it, he immediately got up and went to an empty corner, creating a shadow clone. After instructing the shadow clone to proceed, as usual, he instantly used Flying Thunder God, performing an ultra-long-distance teleportation to a Wagakure. At a private residence, Rinso suddenly appeared. Sensing the Flying Thunder God mark inside the house, he quickly began to change clothes and disguise his appearance. During this time, he also finished browsing some memories from the shadow clone's recollection that he hadn't fully reviewed. His expression gradually turned strange. Does Karatsuchi really have such strong paranoia? Rinso shook his head slightly. He felt that his shadow clone had held back. He had said he would hit hard, but in the end, he only made her carry things as an attendant, which was neither light nor heavy. Moreover, even that punishment wasn't carried out. It was simply ridiculous. Next time, he really had to hit hard. Suchikage office building. After entering, Rinso followed his memory from the previous visit and walked towards the Suchikage's office. Creak. Pushing open the door, several figures came into view. Anoki, suspended in midair. Kuratsuchi, standing obediently, unlike her usual self. And to Kuratsuchi's right, a space away, stood two people. Blonde hair, flowing bangs, Deidara, Anoki's second disciple. A sturdy build, full apple cheeks, Akatsuchi, Anoki's first disciple. As Rinso observed them, they also turned to look at Rinso. Anoki smiled and said to Deidara and Akatsuchi, "This is your third junior brother, Iwao?" Oh, Deidara nodded indifferently, clearly uninterested. Akatsuchi showed a kind smile and nodded. Rinso responded, also smiling and nodding. As for Kuratsuchi, she snorted at Rinso, her eyes full of defiance. Rinso didn't bother to respond, and the two simply didn't speak. Iwao, this is your senior brother, Akatsuchi. And this is your second senior brother, Deidara. Inoki introduced them one by one. Understood, master. Rinso pretended to have just learned, indicating his understanding. After a brief introduction, Inoki didn't expect them to quickly become familiar. Let's go to the training ground. I'll teach you ninjutsu today, Inoki said, about to move. However, before that, he suddenly remembered that he hadn't tested Rinso's chakra nature yet. So he said, "Oh, right away, you haven't tested your chakra nature yet, have you? Let's test it now, so I can determine how to teach you." With that, Inoki called a ninja to fetch a chakra paper. Iwao, channel chakra into it. Inoki handed over the chakra paper, somewhat expectant. If possible, he hoped Rinso would have earth-release chakra, which would be most suitable for learning Iwagakire's ninjutsu. If he also had wind and fire natures, that would be even better, because then he would have the potential to learn Inoki's dust release. Rinso took the test paper. He channeled chakra into the paper. Come to think of it, this was actually his first time testing his own chakra nature, although he already knew he possessed all 5 natures. Soon, the test paper reacted. Under Inoki's expectant gaze, a section of the paper began to crumble. It was earth release. Good. Inoki was about to be happy, but then he noticed the paper's changes hadn't stopped. Almost simultaneously, the paper equally divided into 4 sections. One crumbled, one burned, one became soaked, and one wrinkled. Finally, it split down the middle. All 5 natures, Inoki exclaimed excitedly.